She said, "Can you wait for me for an eclipse?" I want you to think about what I just said. I'm only talking to American girls, so I have to swim through this fucking ocean of obesity.
Let's look at that as 5% of the game, and now let's get on with playing the fucking game. Okay.
I think you're completely fucking wrong, but
I don't think I fucked a true like American girl since like 2016. I think that's the last time I put my dick. Maybe like 2018 once. Anyway,
You're absolved. You're clean.
Yeah,
You're
exactly.
pure now. You guys wouldn't think they're tens, but they get attention like they're tens.
no,
I
you're
can't
just
find your
wrong
IG.
there. No,
Marcus,
it's completely wrong.
Do you need some Xanax, bro? Or
I call this the king and queen relationship. The idea, as you said, it's open on your side, closed on her side. As the king, you can do what you want. As the queen, she's loyal to you.
You know, amateurs study tactics, but experts study logistics.
Whereas, like, you go to Ukraine, or maybe not now, but a few years ago,
I have safety. Come with me. I have safety.
if you want to set up logistics, just find the nearest bomb shelter. It's
Exactly.
easy to play.
Oh,
I shouldn't say
damn.
that.
When the guy acts gay, all of that shield is just taken down. The bitch shield is just totally taken down. But yeah, gay game is something, bro, I've seen it shit work so many times. It's just crazy, bro.
What if I just treated you like a delicate, sweet little princess in the streets, but like my dirty little sex slave in the bedroom? How would you like that?
How old are you, JT? You're a couple of years older than me, I think.
I'm at like 47.
47. Okay, yeah. I'm 41.
Wait,
Just
what?
turned 41.
The fuck? 47?
Yeah.
What is your secret, man? You use Dove skincare?
Just
or
be
what?
Asian, bro.
Right now, yeah, that and like I do like the full-on like 10-step Korean skincare. So like Korean skincare, Asian skincare has like far surpassed like Western skincare. That's the problem, whether it's in pickup or like industries. When you're at the top for so long, you stop innovating, stop researching. So like the West always had like the same sort of things, and then the Japanese, the Koreans just started like doing more research, and like that's why it's become like so popular and so viral because there's a lot more to it, and it's more about prevention as opposed to like, oh, you've already damaged your skin, now let's fix it, right?
No, you look
That's
great,
crazy.
man. I have pretty damaged skin actually. I spent a lot of time in the sun, and I've had a few basal cell cut off even. So yeah, I'm very big on skincare now. Just too much time in the sun. That was all it was, you know. So
Well, you know, do the Korean skincare and like be sure to get that product I recommended, the tiger grass.
I
That'll
did
help,
write it down. Yeah. Yeah.
that'll help counteract like redness. So
Yeah.
No,
Erik
I'm doing
Carlberg,
well.
nice to meet you. Mysteries
Nice to meet you,
Wingman.
bro.
Some people know me as Ablaze.
Oh, awesome, man. Awesome.
Most people don't know me though. I've kept a pretty low profile for a while. So
But did
Easy,
you
man. How long
know
you been
you two
coaching
are
for?
going to be
I've been
debating
coaching for,
each other in 2 days?
yes.
Let's
I saw
go.
his name on the list. Yeah.
Well, should be fun, man. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Don't make friends with the enemy just yet.
That answer your question though. I've been coaching for a while.
Okay, yeah,
Wait,
no friends, okay.
is
Yeah,
my
sorry, go on,
audio
man.
delayed? I think my audio's
You're a little bit
delayed.
laggy for me, but I don't know if my internet's just shit.
No, this was happening on the last one a few days
It
ago
may be
that I
your
was
skin
doing
is
last week. This week.
your
God
video
damn, it's
to
like,
me is definitely
It's
lagged.
choppy as fuck.
holy shit. Oh, God. Okay. That's not good. Fucking Peruvian Wi-Fi.
What's your internet speed?
Peruvian speed. Let me
Okay,
see.
maybe that's why.
How many, just want to figure out how many seconds delay there is between what I'm saying and what I hear you say back. So I'm gonna say now.
No.
I hear it.
now.
Now.
I hear
Now.
it.
That's like a 2.5 second delay. I guess we can work with that. All right. Anyway, all right, guys, we are back. Dating coach panel. We got JT Tran, we got Erik Carlberg, Ablaze, Mysteries Wingman, and we got Markus Wolf from Ultimate Man Project. I know where you guys are. I'm not going to bother asking that question again. Markus, how does it feel being one of the best pickup artists in the world right now? Although you were number one. Now you're not number one anymore.
Yeah, I've been taken off my throne, my man. Feels horrible. I've been depressed the last few days, but yeah, hopefully it'll be okay. See how I go, you know.
It'll be okay. There's always next year. Alrighty. Skip
Thank you.
that one.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Okay, here's a good one. Some guys are afraid of approaching women, and doing day game would be like diving into the deep end for them. What are some smaller steps guys can do in order to approach women, even if they're lazy and have approach anxiety?
So I think there's a few things. Number one, basically my advice here is going to be like start slow and build your way up from like an action point of view. So if it's easier to start like fucking texting girls on Tinder, then fucking start with that before you even go outside. And then when you do go outside, just take the pressure off. Instead of thinking like, fuck, I'm gaming, fuck, I'm trying to like build attraction with these, like put all this pressure on. Just think like, okay, I'm just gonna go say fucking hi to someone. And then just build it up. I'm gonna say hi to someone with some emotion. I'm gonna say hi to someone and maybe add a compliment. I'm gonna say hi to someone and then like challenge them a little bit. And so I think the real key to this is like slow progression. And basically from a mindset point of view, that's going to be your biggest challenge. Just take all the fucking pressure off. It's the easiest way to go about it.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Like, first, you have to sort of self-evaluate where you are on the approach anxiety scale. If it's pretty high, if it's like above an 8, then you've got to take a lot of baby steps. So it's like sort of immersion therapy, right? You just expose yourself to whatever negative stimuli that, causes you that anxiety, which is why I like night game. I know it's like high stimulus, like the bright lights, the drinks, the music, and everything like that, but it's sort of like a video game. You can make mistakes at a club or a bar, and there are no real ramifications as opposed to if you try to day game like at university or at your church or something like that. And then probably the easiest opener, which is based off of social etiquette, is simply, you have a drink, water, beer, whatever, and you just go cheers. Everybody knows what cheers is at a bar. And it's based off of just an, automatic reply. And it's very low like rejection rate. And that way, kind of what Marcus was saying is you start small. Just go cheers, cheers, cheers. And there's like no fear, no rejection. And in that way you can start small and slowly scale down your anxiety from an 8 to 7 to 6.
Yeah, I basically agree with everything that's been said. And I'll say for the guys that are really, really bad with approach anxiety, just go walk around. Even if you can't bring yourself to approach, even if you just have to go walk around a little bit, go home, beat yourself up a little bit for not approaching, go out again the next day, beat yourself up if you don't approach a little bit. Eventually, what's that saying? If you hang around a barbershop long enough, you're going to get a haircut. So I'm a big fan of baby stepping it as well. And in the extreme case, don't even approach, just go walk around. It's better than sitting at home.
How do you prevent girls from flicking on you?
Build as much of a connection as you possibly can before the time bridge, before the number close, before you ask her on a date. The caveat to that, though, is you don't want to be the annoying salesman that she can't get away from. So I'm a big fan of taking an interaction as far as I can, but also recognizing its natural conclusion. Don't rope her in longer than she wants to be there. She should never feel backed into a corner. Take the interaction as far as we can, and then she's more likely to not flake.
Yeah, here in Los Angeles, the flake rate is astronomical. Probably of any city I've ever been to. I think it's normal, like 2/3 of girls are gonna flake because you have like rich guys, good-looking guys, famous guys, and then the city itself is so widespread. Like people on the beach don't date people in downtown. So I'd say like there's always like, try to have like solid, proper game. That's a given. And then, figure out the logistics, right? Is she in your general area? And either try to get it in between the date, like the neighborhoods, or like ideal world nearer to where you are. But if she's like really far, make it really easy for her. So if she's really hot, sometimes what I'll do is I'll send a picture of my dog, Lady. It's like, hey, Lady says that friends don't let friends drink and drive. Let me send you an Uber. Right. Now, I'm not going to do it to like some, mid girl, but if she's hot, I will control logistics. And then obviously like upsell some sort of like really cool, activity, restaurant, whatever it is that you do for a date. And in that regards, if you can control for logistics, upsell it, make it exciting, in addition to your proper game, that can reduce some of the flake rate.
How toxic do we want to get here?
Let's go for it, Michael.
Get with these
are you? Is this evil Sartain
all right
today?
So we're gonna have three different levels. Yes, we're gonna have three different levels to keep her from flaking. Okay, the first one is the one you guys have said, and you're absolutely correct. If you have a great connection with her and she's thinking about you afterwards, then the likelihood of her flaking is very low. The second thing I'm going to recommend for you guys is have a social media, because what happens is when she's not with you, she is going to check your social media. She's going to check the number of stories that you have. And you're going to notice that if you can catch a girl watching 3, 4, 5 stories in a row, the flake rate is going to be lower. So I actually think having a life where it looks like, hey man, this looks like a person that I would like to hang out with, or at least showing the main thing she can't feel like is that she's the best you can do. If she doesn't feel like she's the best you can do, she's just less likely to flake. But here's the third one, and this is the most important one, and this is kind of fucking toxic. FOMO. Man, I just create events where I just really make them feel like shit if they don't show up. And it's either one of these things where it's like we're rescuing animals, like, oh, you just don't give a fuck about the animals, or it's a situation, and I've done this before, and it's pretty fucking toxic, where it's like we invite them. I had this one girl, this huge influencer. This girl flaked on everything we ever did. And I invited her to a party, and this legit happened. So like I wasn't doing this on purpose. It just accidentally happened. The guy who was throwing the party saw a picture of her, and she had like a big old BBL, and he's like, I don't like her. I don't want her to come. So I uninvited her to the party that she was supposed to go to. And when I uninvited her, she never flaked on anything else I ever did from that point forward. That part was like super fucking toxic. She showed up to everything from that point forward. So the thing that I found is like, JT, you're in LA. Next week we're doing Babies in Toyland, the pink party. You should come to that, because what happens is when girl A sees that Caitlin Runk and Kindly Myers and Emily Sears and Abigail Ratchford and Lindsay Payless are there, and they're like, they think, oh, there's going to be some high status dude there, and those girls are going to get his attention instead of me. The girls never flake. That's what makes them show up, is just the bigger, better deal. So I'm a big fan of creating the illusion of the bigger, better deal. And because of that, they genuinely don't flake. But like, there's three, like I said, there's 3 steps. The first one is the actual connection when you're with the girl. The second one is the time bridge. So it's like partially what you show on social media. And then the third one is creating fear of missing out, vanity, and guilt.
Yeah, so yeah, fucking great answers. Yeah, to summarize that, I agree. Give them a reason to show up. If you're running parties, that's awesome. If you're not, then you need to not ask too early. Guys, ask before there's actually a reason for this girl to show up, other than, oh, this guy kind of seems cool and he's friendly, right? If that's all that's going on, then yeah, you're going to get a lot of flakes. So is anything better than that? Give her a friend at the dinner, like literally almost anything, okay? If she'd rather watch a movie or some shit, she's going to do that instead of seeing you. So build attraction first. The biggest problem is guys just ask too early. Girls are super agreeable. Sometimes girls say yes when they want to fucking say no. Like, you can see that. You can literally go out to any girl on the fucking street, just walk up to her and be like, hey, you're cute. Can I get your number? Half of the girls will say yes and give you a fake number or never fucking respond. And guys are confused because guys don't do that shit, right? We're just honest. And so when a girl does that, guys are like, fuck, she flaked. I must have done something very recently that fucked this up. It's like, no, when you asked and she said yes, she probably meant no, right? So make sure you're not asking too early. And then to Michael's point, have some scarcity here, okay? Make it seem like if she flakes now, hey, guess what? Like, she might not get another opportunity with you. But most women, they know with guys, you're chasing, you're asking, like, but when you're free, I can be free this day. What about this day? I'll make any time for you. So that when the girl does the fucking calculation and she's thinking, okay, maybe she might even like you. Maybe she wants to see you. Maybe she's really into you. But she's like, well, hang on. My best friend Stacy just asked to hang out. I haven't seen her in ages. And this guy that I'm going on a date with, I can just fucking reschedule. This guy's going to make fucking time for me without a doubt. So when you ask to meet up, ask when her schedule's like, then tell her like, hey, listen, I'll need a check and I'll get back to you. Then you get back to a few days before, you're like, hey, some things have moved around. I can make some time on Tuesday. That works for me now. So when the girl does that calculation, should I flake if something else comes up? She's like, fuck, this guy had to check his schedule. He wasn't even sure. It's only because something got canceled. I don't know if I'm going to have another opportunity with this guy soon. So yeah, make sure she's got a reason to show up. Don't do it too early, and then yeah, has some scarcity.
Hey, real quick, I want to tell like the most probably the most fucked up, not flaking story, but a story of a girl being late and unaccountable. Do you guys remember this was probably 2017, something like that? There were like 4 blood moons in the same year. So we were all going as a group to watch the blood moon up on Mount Charleston, not Mount Charleston, up in Red Rock Canyon. And this girl hit us up and she goes, "Hey, can you guys wait for me? I'm going to be late." Guys, she said, "Can you wait for me for an eclipse?" I want you to think about what I just said. Like, think about the lack of accountability. A fucking lunar eclipse. Somehow we're gonna hold it up for this girl because she felt like the need to be late because she wasn't accountable. That is how insane they are. Like what Marcus said. If there's anything else going on, anything to distract them, the idea that she asked us to wait for her so that we'd miss the eclipse. We can't move the eclipse, honey. You know, that was like a literal force, an act of God. She wanted us to move for her. And the other thing I was going to say is, this is really funny. This girl's a doctor, by the way. She's a doctor who worked in an ER. This is the craziest thing ever. Here's the other thing that was absolutely crazy. Is that, and if you ask Steve Fowler this, or if you ask Barry Blood, these are 2 big party promoters in Los Angeles. If you ask them, they're going to tell you the same thing. It is easier for me to get 100 girls to show up to a party than it is for me to get 10 girls to show up. And it's very confusing for people. And the reason why, so if you look at the average body count for men, on the bottom third, it's like 0 or 1. In the middle, in the median, this is for the United States, it's about 5 to 7. When you get in the top 5%, it's 50. And when you get to the top 1%, it's 150. So it goes like this. And the reason why is, like I said, there's these guys who have like unlimited access. When we throw a big party, it's all the girls show up. You create this critical mass and all the girls end up showing up. And all the guys who asked girls out on that date, they flaked on them to come to Maxim Carnival or to come to Babes in Toilet and Pink Party or to come to something like that. And what you'll find is it's way easier for me if I can get a couple of key girls to show up to an event. Every girl then shows up. And so it's actually easier for me to get 6 girls to go with me to like a party is actually harder than if I were to get 30 or 40 girls to show up with me to like a comp at Omnia or something like that. So it's like, it's the opposite of what you think. The more girls, then you successively, each girl get less resistance, if that makes any sense. And the flake rate actually starts to decrease the bigger the event is. And that was something I noticed. Like the biggest event of all was Bulgarian's Ignite parties. When I would ask girls, I usually, if you're really good, if you're new to this, you're going to get like a 10% response rate if you invite a ton of girls, and maybe like a 50% reconfirmation rate. For Bulgarian, it was an 80% open rate, and it was like a fucking 90% of those girls actually showed up. So something like that, like super high status, the offer is going to cause, and what happened was because so many girls were coming, the successive resistance per girl started to decrease to the point where like no girl said no, and you had no flakes.
So for example, in a one-on-one date context, what would you recommend for like normal guys who are not necessarily into social circle game in order to, can you still hear me? I seem to be a little frozen.
Yeah, you look like you're lagging there a little bit. Ice. Is this the Peruvian internet or the Iceland?
Exactly.
Which one is this?
Fucking South Americans.
We never know where you are, bro.
Your video's just cook, but we can hear you, bro.
I can hear you.
I just can't plug it in again.
Oh, what I said before. It's like what Marcus said. It's attraction, and I also think it's having really good social media.
Alrighty. If I could have all figures in the PUA community decide to give her the rules of pickup, what should they be? So, for example, there has always been the idea of leave her better than you found her. Whatever kind of concepts or rules should be in place for the guys in the community.
I'll lead off with this one. So I think that every coach has some responsibility to teach game in a responsible way, to incorporate integrity into their teaching. Like, think about martial arts, right? Imagine if there were martial arts schools that weren't training people to be, to be good with their martial arts. They just teach martial arts and then, go ahead and start fights with people, go beat everyone up, right? That's going to cause an issue. at a certain point. You know, if martial arts schools can't regulate themselves, someone's going to come in and regulate them. They're going to put rules in place and say, hey, all these people training in martial arts and then causing issues. So similar to martial artists, I do think it's a responsibility of every coach to incorporate some integrity, some honesty, some respect, make sure that they're teaching their clients the law, you know, what constitutes harassment versus just starting a conversation with a woman. So I think that should be a very foundational thing that every coach needs to take seriously.
Definitely agree with that. To add on to that, I think coaches, as one gets famous, it's very easy to have like a very big ego. Like I'm sure like I went through that during like my early Asian Playboy phase. But one thing that is very toxic in our industry is like everybody thinks like, oh, I'm the top dojo. I'm like the top man, and everybody's like, it's like, you know, my kung fu is better than this one's kung fu, and it just gets this idea that, you know, it gets very political, if you will. It gets all this sort of like fucking drama as if like everybody is like these teenage girls. It's just leave the drama home. It's like there's enough like clientele, enough business. This is a massive community that there's no reason to act like, you know, cat fighting, really. Right. So that's always annoyed me from like the very beginning of the community. Like, do what you do, teach it well, leave the girls better than you found them, do your best by the students, and just leave the politics at the door.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to like ethical rules or not. I guess, yeah, I agree with these. You know, leave it better than found, to be honest. I think the biggest thing we typically see is most guys, they might come into that whole rule, like leave him better than you found him. They kind of just think like, okay, I won't like fucking beat up this girl or some shit. But then they find themselves in a situation where they're like, oh, this girl wants a relationship. Yeah, I kind of like just hints that I kind of want that too. And I'll kind of lead her on a little bit. Yeah, I have a problem with that. I think from a game point of view and just skill point of view, like, fuck it. Like, it's just bad game. If you want to hang out with this girl as long as possible, you're better off just telling her the truth that, like, hey, I don't want a fucking relationship with you. I just want to keep it casual. Maybe don't say it that directly. But at least don't pretend that you're exclusive with this girl when you're not. I think that's the next big one. But if we're just talking about like broader game rules, I think the idea of just trying to turn on a mind instead of a body is probably the best one for guys to follow, because I feel like so many guys are just trying to escalate with women by touching, and they just think everything should be physical. And I think if you just sit back and you focus on just having that conversation that can build that sexual tension and move it towards that that way, is like a very golden rule that I believe in. So yeah, ethically, obviously be honest, but non-ethically, I think focus on verbal game.
I don't know about like rules. I mean, I do have some ethical rules, but like here are like 4 rules that I have for guys in general. Number one, if you have parties back at your place, there should be a camera in all common areas, not in the bedroom. There should be a camera in all common areas. Trust me, it saves everybody a lot of issues. Somebody stole something, and then you can quickly go back and review the camera footage. Number 2, men do not pour women's drinks. Only women pour women's drinks. Whenever I have parties like that, I always assign one really hot girl to do all the drink pouring, because I've had too many issues where girls will be like, oh, I drank too much, or someone drugged me. And like, nobody drugged you. You just don't know how to drink. And so that's another thing. The third thing is I never send lascivious messages ever. Like, I just don't. If a girl wants something lascivious from me, she can come get it from me in person. If a girl sends me nudes, I write back like, go with God. You have to imagine that every time you send a girl a message, as soon as like in the moment she loves that you're validating her. But if something goes wrong between you and her, she's going to use all those messages. Like, she potentially could use all those messages against you. You see what's going on with Andrew Tate right now. You see all these other people, they leave you saw the shit with the voice memos with what's his face, Tiger Woods back in the day. Anything you leave is just going to be a trail. So I just recommend people just don't do that at all. Just stay away from that. So those are my main rules that I have for guys, just to stay out of trouble, just in general. And then the last one is this: if you do have sex with a girl, you need to, on the way back, you need to be like, hey, just want to make sure you had, make sure you got home okay, or hey, I had a great time. You need to get one positive affirmation response back from her. This is actually the first time I ever heard this was in the show Billions. Bobby Axelrod, his attorney comes up to him and goes, no matter what happens on this date, you're going to text the girl at the end. You're going to say, hey, let's meet up for drinks later on this week. And when she responds back, hey, yeah, I had a great time, she can't go off later when her boyfriend finds out that she cheated. She can't go off and say, oh, he took advantage of me or something like that. So I would recommend those 4 things to just kind of protect you in general. I know those are not like rules for pickup artists, but in general, those are the 4 things that I've seen that have really, like, I've had a lot of guys come back to me afterwards and thank me for that, because it really does protect you from, guys, it's not that women are out there just like all trying to falsely accuse men. The issue is that's happening is that a lot of times, this is the most common one that's happened, is a girl has a great time and ends up cheating on her dude with another guy. And then her guy finds out about it. And then she runs off with some story about how she got taken advantage of. That's the issue that I've seen happen, especially some of my wealthier clients. I've seen that happen before. And that's what I would like to recommend you guys protect yourself from those four steps that I just mentioned before. Because I've just seen this happen too many times. It's not that girls are running around just being like, oh, I got raped all the time. It's very small percentage of girls that run off and do that. They usually have borderline personality disorder. We're talking about like maybe 4, 5, 6% of women. But what I have seen happen on a few occasions is a girl ends up hooking up with a guy. You know, she goes on stage at a nightclub or whatever. She ends up hooking up with the DJ, and then she tells people that the DJ took advantage of her so that her boyfriend doesn't leave her. So that's a place where you could get yourself in a lot of trouble. So that's what I would recommend you protect yourself from.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off the back of that. I call this like post-sex consent. I think like 95% of the time that I think you're going to get like these false, let's call it like false rape allegations, right? Is that it's going to be not pre-sexual consent. So most guys out there, hopefully, aren't fucking psychopaths. And when you're on a date and a girl like says no, you know what no means, right? It's like very clear and obvious, and hopefully no one like goes past that boundary. But it's more these times where the girl's maybe a little unsure at first, but then you guys start getting along a little bit more, and then maybe you get back to your place and she's like, oh, look, I'm not really sure about this. And you're like, yeah, it's cool. And then like you pull back and she's like, okay, yeah, maybe I do want this. And you start making out, she gets a bit turned on. Or it's a case where like, maybe she's like, look, I never want to do anal. I'd never do with this a guy. And then it's like in the moment, it feels good. And then she's like, holy shit, like my ass is going to sit with this is great. And then next minute you fuck her in the ass or some shit. And it's usually pre-sex. Girls are going to be fine with stuff. It's post-sex that they can start having these rationalizations. They can start to think back. And now they're like, hang on. I'm not the type of girl to go home and have sex with a guy on the first night. But I did with this guy. Did he like make me do that? And they start to rationalize it. So it's always important. Don't have sex with a girl and then kick her out and go to the club. Okay. You always need to have just a little moment of aftercare at least and just lay there with the girl. And I like to just chill back a little bit. The girl's going to hopefully chasing and ask some questions. But give her some space to kind of think about it. And sometimes if you're real worried, then yeah, validate the experience. That was a lot of fun for me. I really enjoyed that. She's like, yeah, me too. Because it could even just be something small. The fact that like, okay, you didn't really feel the chemistry. You don't want to see this girl again. But then she's like, holy fuck, he just used me for sex, right? He had this intention the entire time and he didn't make it clear. So yeah, I agree with Michael there. Always make sure sending that message afterwards. Last night was fire. She sends it back. That's really good. I have a different view about the sexting or, you know, messages with girls. I think I see it the opposite way. I see it if I'm messaging a girl and I'm into BDSM and we're chatting about that. I actually like to have that on text. I like to say like, what are you into? And she can tell me like, yeah, like I like to be choked. I really like this. And then I'll be like, look, this is what I have imagined for us. And I can sext it. She'll be like, that sounds so hot. I screenshot that shit. So later on when she's like, I've got bruises on me or something, potentially, I'm like, hang on, like, you told me how much you love bruises a second ago.
So Marcus is bringing up a great point because he screenshots it. What I was talking about, Marcus, what I've seen before is that they'll go back and forth on IG DM and she'll unsend all of her messages. I've seen girls screenshot that. But you're right. Like if you screenshot it first and then you kind of protect yourself. I've just seen anything like what Marcus said before. Imagine like you end up hooking up with a girl and then she finds out, oh shit, Marcus is a dating coach and I've never had sex with a guy on a first date like that. He manipulated me. And like shit like that will get you in trouble. Or maybe they're like, oh, this guy I hooked up with, he subscribes to Game Global. He must be using Game. And then they just reverse rationalize how they could never have done this thing that they just did. And so you're right. That's one of the issues that you're going to have, which is why, like I said before, I love having hey, had an incredible time last night. I'll write a message like, hey, man, or I'll be like, hey, I'm totally sorry I kept you up all night. LOL, and then she'll write me back like, no, I had a great time. Cool, we're good. I don't have to worry about anything else after that. But what Marcus is saying is also good. There's an attorney who's in Men of Action, JC. He works for the State Department in Florida, and he told me this, and I thought it was a really great piece of advice. He said, tell the girl, he said, get in your favorite position. And I thought that was interesting because he was, when he said it to him, I didn't think about it at first, but he's like, he tells the girl, get in your favorite position or show me your favorite position, because she's getting in a position that she's not going to complain about. And she's also offering consent at the same time. So I really like that piece of advice. It's something that I've tried recently, is like, hey, show me your favorite position. Because then they can't go back and reverse rationalize and be like, oh, he forced me into doing something. So this is always I think this issue we're talking about is only going to get progressively worse. I don't really think it's going to get better. I think there's just too many ways that this can go wrong, and why as a guy, you just have to protect yourself.
Why do you think it's going to get worse?
Because the Overton window always shifts to the left. I mean, throughout history. I mean, you guys, the biggest, this is way off topic here, but the biggest purveyor of information right now, the biggest power source of controlling people right now is going to be artificial intelligence. And I mean like Perplexity.ai, ChatGPT, Claude. And these places are completely and totally just indoctrinated by woke ideology. And I think we're going to get to a point where, as long as that's happening, the Overton window is going to continually shift to the left. There's colleges, campuses right now where they call you bigoted because you don't want to date a trans person. We're headed in that direction. That's why, honestly, that's the reason why. We're only going in one direction. We're not stopping it. And because of that, I do think, like, hey, I'm a heterosexual masculine man. Like, I'm the first one to get canceled now. I'm a cisgendered heterosexual masculine man from Texas who believes in God, canceled. So I do, and I'm not trying to play victim here, but I just, I have noticed over time, and also being a content creator on the internet, the things you can get canceled for, like misgendering someone on Twitter is one of the craziest things. They were actually taking your account down for that. I think we're just getting to a point very quickly where in certain spaces, there's just going to be a complete lack of tolerance. If you've seen some of the debates on college campuses where people just have any discussion whatsoever about gender dynamics or intersexual dynamics or evolutionary psychology, they're being booed off campus. I just think we're only going in one direction. And so I think it's going to get more and more difficult. And at the same time, while it gets more and more difficult, women are going to crave more and more masculine men. There's great studies in Norway, where in Norway, they actually have women make as much money, if not more money than men. It's a much more egalitarian society. And those women even want men who are more masculine than the average, because of the society that they've been put in. So I think both things are true. Like, what we still have to protect ourselves, but at the same time, our evolution, women are still going to want masculine men.
The funny part is, I'm not misgendering you. You're misgendering yourself. And then you're getting their pronouns.
And we're just canceled. Man, just throw it. YouTube
Canceled.
video is down, bro. We're just done. We're all canceled.
Fuck, even Zoom stopped the recording. Fuck. Alrighty, Casey's here. Let me just.
That's right, man. We're done.
Casey here. It's your first time on a dating coach panel. So where are you calling in from?
I'm currently in Sao Paulo, Brazil.
Oh, damn. Okay. I'm in Lima, Peru. Yeah. So far yet so close. So close yet so far.
Oh, right.
Alrighty. Yeah, let me see if
you speak Spanish.
So yeah. Alrighty, yeah. Let's move on to the next question then. Any other comments on this? Okay, moving on. What do you say or do when a girl says she has a boyfriend?
Okay, so depends why. All right. Typically, if this is very early on in the interaction, it might just be an excuse. Okay. So my first thing to think then is like, why potentially does she need to give an excuse here? So if you're getting like, I've got a boyfriend with like 90% of girls, not that many girls are in relationships, like you're probably doing something wrong. I probably want to reassess what I'm doing there and maybe like fix that and not stop showing so much intent in the beginning before trying to display attraction. So that's number one. But practically speaking, what I do in the moment is basically screen and see what she means by boyfriend. As I said, some girls are just lying. Some girls, they've met a guy on Tinder and have been on 2 dates. And so in her mind, it's her boyfriend. And then some girls are with a boyfriend, but she fucking hates him and they're about to break up. And then you have some girls that are about to get married and deeply in love with this guy and, you know, ready to have kids. So one way I scream for that is I'll just be like, oh, that's really cool. Okay. Don't use any of these cheesy lines like, oh, I've got a goldfish. I thought we we'll talk about shit that doesn't matter or some shit. Like, don't do any of that. You just sound like butthurt or you sound like a fucking clown or immature. Just have a fucking conversation. She says I got a boyfriend. Say cool. That's awesome. Right? Now it doesn't even sound like you give a fuck or it doesn't feel like you're rejected. Then ask her the next question. I'm curious, like how long you guys been together? Now she says like 3 weeks. I'll be like, basically, no matter what she says, I'll basically say, oh, so it doesn't sound too serious, right? 6 months, so it doesn't sound too serious. And then if she says, yeah, it's not, okay, then yeah, it's probably not that serious. We'll stay in this interaction, we'll see where it goes, and we'll test a little bit further. If I say it's not that serious and she goes, no, it is, I am very much in love with him, then I'm like, all right, GG. Okay, I'm probably not going to waste my time here. I'll just use her to help me find the next girl. If this isn't a club, I'll just tell her like, okay, perfect. This is great. Okay, you're ideal. She's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I need your help to find me a wife. Okay, I'm looking for my third wife tonight. All right, you're gonna help me out. And girls love doing that shit. They love winging, and so now you got like some social proof or some pre-selection if she's hot. And so yeah, basically screen, find out if it's serious or not. If it's not, then keep going. If it is, then yeah, just use there as your wing.
I feel
And
like this question is very context dependent. You know, depends. Is it a daytime approach and she says she has a boyfriend? I found that 90% of the time, if she says she has a boyfriend off a day game approach, it's done. You know, and I'm not even going to fight it that hard either. You know, I'm not going to really prod much further. You know, if I'm in a social circle environment or a night game environment and I'm opening the group, you know, I may just, you know, there's so much context here, right? Like, am I talking to her and then just out of nowhere, she says she has a boyfriend? You know, because normally I'm going indirect. I'm opening the group. I'm building attraction with everybody. I'm trying to get some signals from her, some IOIs, M3 model style, right? So she's typically not going to say that unless I give her an IOI myself at some point, right? Which is normally an A3 if we're going to go M3 about this, right? So it's so context dependent. There was a time when I first got into game in my early to mid 20s where I experimented with different boyfriend destroyer patterns and, oh, you have a boyfriend, cool. I was wondering if you were looking for a husband though, or you can minimize, you know, you can say, oh, okay, cool. And then just like stack forward. You can say, okay, you have a boyfriend, but like a serious boyfriend, like the kind of boyfriend that like, you know, you're in love with him, or is he like kind of just the guy you're seeing? You know, I've experimented with all these different things, and typically I don't like to overcome the boyfriend objection. If I get the boyfriend objection, I'm in a social environment, I'm going to continue socializing. And then if all of a sudden the boyfriend objection disappears and she's re-engaging me and she's, you know, trying to start conversation with me, then I might turn my attention toward her again. So I'm not a big destroy the boyfriend kind of guy, like overcome the boyfriend objection. I try to not get it in the first place. Context dependent. That's what I got for you.
In my context, it'd be primarily night game. And generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, I almost never get like, I have the boyfriend. Part of that is just like obviously me, and I'm going direct, sometimes indirect. But also mentally, I assume every attractive girl that I meet has on some level, some type of boyfriend, sort of going off what Mike was saying. It could be like casual situationship, friends with benefits. They're seeing each other, but they're seeing multiple partners, to they're serious, but like one partner is unhappy. I just assume they all, like, if you're approaching any girl that's above like a 7 that's pretty, she's got something on tap, right? So I always assume that. And if you are getting the I have a boyfriend, you're coming off as needy, desperate. There's something where you're not hitting the fuckable line. You know, there's something off of your approach where you're coming off as, like I said, like horny, needy, desperate. And, you know, I will typically just throw in a quick sort of joke, like, how long have you had that problem? Laugh. And then moving to ingratiate her, getting into like the set. And again, going off what Mark was saying, make her my friend and we can wing, or I can use the status and social proof to maybe like go into another group of girls. Otherwise, if she's like seriously involved, then it's too much effort, right?
Yeah, if a girl who tells me she has a boyfriend, I just move the fuck on because why the fuck would I waste my time? Time is your most valuable asset. It either means she actually has a boyfriend and she's not willing to cheat on him. And even if she did, he may be psycho and kill you. You never know what weird, jealous dudes might do. Or what it could mean is she just doesn't fucking like you. Your something was off in your communication. I would just rather get another at bat, right? Just because you swung and missed at one pitch doesn't mean there'll be infinite number of pitches, and I just move on to the next one.
Or you know what? That's pretty funny because and to take bear in mind this is a story of a girl that I didn't even interact with, the husband of this random woman, and I never even met the woman. So just imagine like the truth to what you're saying. I didn't even date her or anything. The husband of a random woman on Facebook who just like commented on my Facebook post or some shit. Didn't know who she was. Fucking found me in the third biggest, I think, train station, London Underground subway station, uh, quite a few years back during rush hour among hundreds of fucking people in the tunnel while I was on my way to work or something. The guy fucking not only identified me in the crowd, but knew that I was the person he was looking for. It was so fucking random. I didn't even know who the fuck he was, but he like confronted me. He was like, "You being taking my wife out for a date?" I was like, "I don't know what the fuck you're talking about." And turns out it was a woman I never even met. It was just some crazy psycho, just like you were talking about. And the only connection I had with this woman was that I was hosting a barbecue and she didn't go to it, but she was invited to it via Facebook group that just had in everyone's invited. So there's literally no fucking connection, but this guy found me among hundreds of people during rush hour underground in the busy fucking tunnels. Just like, what kind of crazy shit is that? So yeah. Anyway, any other perspectives on this?
I'll say one more thing about this. So I typically, if a woman has a boyfriend and I'm just looking at her as someone that I'm attracted to short term, I'm 9 times out of 10, I'm not going to try to disrupt that relationship, right? I'm going to respect she has a boyfriend. I'm only thinking about her in short term way anyway. But if I see a girl and I think, man, I really like this girl, there may be some long term potential here. This is when I was single, by the way. I am engaged. But when I was single, if I saw a woman and she had a boyfriend, I may indirectly still kind of run my game on her, interacting with other people. I'm going to sort of project my energy in a certain way. I'm going to try to draw her attention to me. And if she starts to like me better than her boyfriend, and I happen to see her over the course of several weeks, like social circle style, may go out with the same group of friends multiple times. I have been in situations where a girl has broken up with her boyfriend 2 or 3 weeks after I met her, and she hit me up on social media, and I'm like, that was not a coincidence, you know. It's happened more times than once. So these are girls that I really like, though. Again, I wasn't just trying to hook up. I actually saw some relationship potential. So maybe very indirectly trying to demonstrate that I'm a pretty solid dude. When I first meet her, she goes home, she looks at her boyfriend, he doesn't quite stack up. And then over the next few weeks, she breaks up with him, and boom, I get a message from her. Have I done that a few times in my day? I have.
What was here's a weird one. I don't know. Someone gave me this question. What was the strangest style of game you have ever seen that worked?
This is easy. Well, I want to hear all. Marcus, you're smiling. What was it? Was it for you? I want to hear this. I bet Marcus might be the same one as me. I don't know.
Bro, the funniest shit I was seeing was Alex, so my business partner, is I was listening to his interaction, and this girl's first, she was like attitude, right? And this first line she goes, is this some line? Is this something you're just using on me? And Alex is like, yes, that's exactly what it is. He's like, look, I came over. So I said I looked like I was busy, but I wasn't really. He's like, I pretended like I was about to look. And he just started explaining every little fucking manipulation, every little tactic he was using the entire time. He's like inviting the girl back to his place, and she's like, look, I don't really know. He's like, okay, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do now. This is the tactic that I use. And the funniest thing was, you think it just never work, but the girl just appreciated like the social intuition that Alex obviously had pre-selection. He's done this a lot. And yeah, it was just funny to hear someone explain his game the entire way through and for it to still work. So yeah, for me, that was mine, but I'm interested in hearing yours, Michael.
All right. Back in and I'll say this, Owen Cook a long time ago, he made this video, and this is after I'd actually seen somebody do this. He and this other dude, they walk around and they walk up to this girl and they're like, oh my God, like this is me and my boyfriend and blah blah blah. They start talking. It's like, yeah, fuck like 300 guys. They're pretending to be flaming homosexuals. Okay. And the girl, she starts opening up and she starts telling people, she's like, oh my God, yes. Yes. Ice already knows where I'm going. She's like, yeah, like so it's funny because they have this on video. In one case, she tells this guy she slept with like 2 or 3 people, but she tells the gay couple that she slept with like 70 dudes. So she like admits the truth. I've seen this happen before where dudes act kind of like super gay on purpose, and it works unbelievable. We just straight up called it gay game. And I've seen guys do this shit before, and I'm always surprised. There's this one dude in Vegas. This guy was running gay game for years, and like he would, like girls would tell me, he's like, yeah, we went out and we were drinking and went back to his place, and then all of a sudden, like he pulls his dick, and I'm like, what the fuck? I didn't expect this. And then she ends up sleeping with him. And this is where, when we were talking about before, like a girl afterwards is like regretting that she did this whole thing. But I've just heard too many times where a girl tell me, I thought this guy was gay, and then she ended up sleeping with him. And the reason why, from an evolutionary standpoint, is there's this wall that she normally puts up for masculine men, which is normal, right? Because men are bigger than women. Men, like women have to, throughout ancestral times, women had to protect themselves, had to use ideas of protection against men from being sexually assaulted. So when the guy acts gay, all of that shield is just taken down. The bitch shield is just totally taken down, and guys just move further and faster. I don't recommend it. I've just seen it work so many times where girls are like not sure. A guy dresses way too fucking well, or he's way too flamboyant. But yeah, gay game is something. Bro, I've seen it shit work so many times. It's just crazy, bro. The guys will straight up be like, if I, or the other one is, if I wasn't gay, I'd fuck the shit out of you. I've seen guys go up and do that. I know one dude, he would sit there and do it like a real masculine, like deep voice that goes, yo, if I wasn't gay, I would fuck the shit out of you. And girls would just laugh, and then they just start making out with him. So I've seen that's probably the most unique, weirdest one that I've seen work pretty well.
Yeah,
anal is normally a good
guys run
workaround.
out there and start wearing their fucking pink t-shirts and shit.
Yeah.
I like that suggestion where you act really masculine and say you're gay, or something that I know works really well is you just do your first sentence gay. All right, so you can walk up, you can be flamboyant, you can do whatever you want. As Michael said, it brings down the walls. Then you just act normal, and girls don't fucking say a thing. I've got feedback of girls afterwards where I'm like, do you remember the first thing I fucking said to you? And then they're laying there in bed and they're like, holy fuck. There's like this mind. They're like, hang on, did you come up to me? And I'm like, yes. So yeah, like you just go in, it breaks down the wall, and then you just act normal. That works. So yeah, it's it's fun to watch.
That's crazy.
That's funny. I do I know some guys who do the gay game thing where they've told me straight up, I just act like I'm gay, and they talk really flamboyantly and they act like a stereotypical gay guy. And some women gravitate to it. It's hard to explain. Mystery has a pretty unique style of game where he will rant. He will talk to a woman maniacally about whatever's of interest to him. And when she tries to talk, he'll often interrupt and continue talking about what he wants to talk about. He will multi-thread and go off on all sorts of crazy tangents. And as we all know, Mystery has pretty good game, right? It's verified. It's been witnessed by many people. I would say that there are times where my game is rather unique. Maybe a little bit more when I was younger and I was experimenting with different styles of game too. I could walk up to a girl and start ranting to her about a dream that I had, or I would ask her some bizarre question where, I feel like the game right now is very much about trying to be like the archetypical, well, I'm drawing a blank here. The traditional male archetype, strong, dominant, masculine. you can do that and then also incorporate uniqueness into your game. You know, I've opened with what song defines your life? You know, I don't look at the girl with some crazy stare in my eye, right? And some of them are like, what? You're weird, right? But then other ones are like, I don't know. And they, you know, they're drawn into that little touch of psychotic craze, you know, that little bit of mania, if you will. So I found that to be very effective. And it's not really it's not an act, right? It's kind of who I am. I think that I'm kind of this mainstream dude, but I have this alternative streak in me as well. So yeah.
Reminds me
The
of
one thing I can contribute to
another.
this
Oh, go ahead.
conversation is this is like, oh yeah, damn, that is some serious delay, bro. But it's all good. Yeah, so this is like 2014 Las Vegas, RSD heyday, RSD immersion, and we had two students that would have to use the most opposite styles of game, and at least off the opening, at least I don't know about the end result. End results were very, very different, but at least off the opening, the results were equally effective, doing like the complete opposite. So we had one guy who was a 6'4" bodybuilder. He's actually a Chippendales dancer, like the male striptease, like the Chippendales guys. So he was like a Giga Chad, 6'5", and he would be like shirtless during like summertime excess outdoors. If you guys know that nightclub at the Encore Hotel, he would open girls like, hey, excuse me, 2 seconds, please. Could I talk to you? That was the only way. If he goes up to girls, hey, excuse me, 2 seconds, they just scream and run because like the Hulk has just like talked to them in like a big booming voice. And that's what he would have to do to actually get the girls' attention, not make them scream and run. And then our other student was a ugly 45-year-old Iranian guy, about 5'4", chubby, not good looking. And his opener, this is 2024, or sorry, 2014. This would not work today in 2024. He would go up to girls and say, excuse me, I just had to tell you, you're the ugliest bitch in this club. And he would have this funny, like Iranian, but also British accent. And that was the only way he actually like get on a girl's radar. Because if he said, hey, excuse me, 2 seconds, just want to talk to you real quick, girls wouldn't even hear him. They keep running past him. And it was just funny how like if the other guy said that, hey, excuse me, I just had to tell you, the ugliest bitch in this club, they would start crying. They would get a bouncer. They would throw a drink in his face. But when the little short, non-good looking guy would say that to them, they just start laughing and stuff. It just came off as like such a joke, and because of the British accent. So that was kind of something weird that I saw.
That reminds me of Grown Ups 2. There's that super jacked guy at the water park, and he just opens like, "Hey, ladies," with like a super high fucking voice. Oh, goddamn. Oh, what else was I gonna say? Oh, there was a guy I used to live with. Now that I think of it, and he watches these videos, so I'm gonna be nice, but he had like Asperger's, or I don't know what these kinds of things are, but the guy had issues basically. And for example, he would come into my room just like completely uninvited, like not even knock, just like open the fucking door. So I was well aware after living with him, even just for like 2 days, that this guy had issues. But one time I agreed with him to go to the the bar, the pub next door, right next to the house, and went in there just to get some food. And there was a Chinese Canadian woman sitting on the bar stool, and he went up to her and started talking. And I just wanted to watch and see what the fuck would happen. And I was witnessing, you know, like the scene in Hangover Part 3 where Alan goes into the pawn shop and has these fucking intense romantic moments with the owner. And like it was like watching that. It was so fucking absurd. I couldn't believe what I was fucking watching. This is like this guy was literally like Alan, but not as fat. And he was literally picking up this woman right in front of my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, they are like two peas in a pod. How the fuck is this happening? This guy's retarded, and he's fucking like getting along with her so well. Either way, I was just like, this is too fucking hilarious. I'm just gonna hang out with them and see what happens. it ended up that she latched on to me. So while at first I was third wheeling to kind of spectate the crazy thing that was happening, I ended up pulling her to my room and then got her in bed. And then he fucking came in. I was like, dude, what are you doing? Anyway, that's enough of that. That was too fucking absurd. Oh man. But moving on to the next, unless any final comments on this?
JT, do you have something to say? I have one adder to this.
No, not really. I mean, I think what the Gen Z kids call it the tism right? Like the autistic game. You're so socially awkward. You don't pick up any clues, and you're just like a bull in a china shop, and you just go without any calibration. Not that I recommend it, but it's the tism now for the kids.
I actually think that's kind of cool. I think that if somebody is truly autistic, they should just own that shit, own it, and yes, you're going to repel some women with that, but the ones that latch on are going to latch on, right? So I have one more though that I've done on many occasions, and that is like this super shameless direct game that is like on display for everybody at a party. So most guys think of going direct as in they open direct and the girl either is interested or not interested, right? But I've gone direct in the sense where I'm at a party, hanging out with friends, door opens, attractive woman walks in, and I'm like, oh, who is this chick, right? Like super loud, super outrageous with it, shamelessly hitting on her, right? Sometimes they react a little negatively, like, man, who's this guy, right? But then like I'm pinky waving them the whole night and like just shamelessly flirting, don't care who sees it. I've done that at a sorority party as well, where I walked in and went, oh my God, look at all these hotties, right? And they were like, what? Who's this guy, right? But I owned it and I stayed in that frame, no shame whatsoever. And by the end of the night, these girls warmed up to it, right? Like it was this over the top, fun, playful, not creepy, fun, playful, hitting on everybody style of game. And I'll spare the details on how some of those nights wound up, but I'll let you use your imagination. So
I can imagine that at like a funeral. You just come in like that. Anyway, what are some of
yeah,
your
no, this is
night?
not for funerals. This is not for funerals.
Yeah. Alrighty. My delay is so fucking bad, but either way, let's continue. What are some of your night game openers? We kind of discussed on the last panel day game openers, but let's go for some night game openers now.
I'll just jump in because I primarily do night game. I have a couple of different types. If you're like high anxiety or just want to start off slow and warm up, I do my Kickstarter, which is just cheers. It's a social etiquette. Cheers, cheers, cheers. My name's JT. What's your name? Hey, we're celebrating XYZ. Come by later, right? And then once I'm in the mood, I'll just go like, you are fucking beautiful. You are fucking adorable. You are a fucking plus adjective. That's it, right? There's no need for anything else. And like I said, with that, I generally don't get any kind of like boyfriend excuse. You can cut down through the bullshit pretty fast, get into isolate them, sit them down. And like those are probably like my go-tos. And otherwise I go like observational, something like within the context of the situation. So I either again do something that's based off of social etiquette, ingratiating myself into the group, or I just go direct with you are fucking plus adjective. If they're tall, which pretty much every single girl is tall compared to me, I would say you are tall and gorgeous. I love you. And that'll work, a lot with the 6 foot tall guys compared to me at my 5'5" Asianness.
Yeah, I open logistical questions usually. If I'm just by myself, like I don't have a girl with me and I'm like, I don't have a table on stage or anything, I'm just gonna go up and I'm asking where they are. And usually from that, it's usually situational. Somewhere in the conversation is gonna come in. Like, for instance, if I'm sitting there talking to a girl, I'm like, she's like, oh, I'm from Santa Monica. I'm like, oh man, well, I guess we're never gonna date because you live fucking 3 hours away or something something to that extent. Or I'll make fun of where she's from. And then usually afterwards, I'm gonna invite her to something. Either come meet me with my friends or something like that. Like it's not usually I think what's more important is the way you go up and talk to them, that you're not stumbling over your words or you seem insecure. But to me, if I do have a girl with me, which I usually do whenever I go out, I usually have her do the open and bring girls over to me.
Yeah, I agree with Michael here. It's literally, it's such a cliche thing. Like it matters how you say it, but it couldn't be more true. You could fucking say anything you wanted, and you could make that sound direct and or needy or fucking chasey, or you could say anything you fucking want and make it sound very grounded, relaxed. It really matters the way you're gonna fucking say it. So typically what I like to teach is to have a mix here. I like to go in with direct subcoms. So I like to hold eye contact, stand a little bit closer than would be a friendly distance, convey confidence and charisma by like moving your hands around a little bit. But then my actual verbals are going to be something indirect. It might be like, hey, look, I'm really fucking curious. A little bit of a pause, tension. Where are you from? Okay. Or like what I do, I'm a bit of a fucking smartass, right? I'll come in and be like, hey, listen, I'm so sorry. Okay. Guys, one second. Listen, I have to tell you something. She's like, what? I'm like, I'm so fucking nervous. Okay. I have to build up the courage to come over here and say hi. And then the first thing that comes out of her mouth is, no, you're very confident. Okay. And I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking with you. Right. The other alternative to this is a pre-opening idea, which I love, which is if you just see a girl across the fucking room, all right, and you got a girl with you, or yeah, fuck it, you got a guy with you, okay, you just whisper into that guy's ear and say, just laugh, okay. Now you're both laughing, you look over and you just point at her. This girl, okay, is going to be fixated on you for the next few minutes. She's like, why are these guys fucking laughing at me? She'll look behind her. She'll try to see if she's got something on her dress or her hair's mixed up. She might like ask her friend. Sometimes these girls come storming over, right? But you build some tension there, some curiosity. And I guarantee you go in and speak to this girl later. She's not going to tell you, it's a girl's night, we're busy. She's going to be like very curious as to what the fuck was going on earlier. And yeah, it's a nice little pre-open. You can do something a little bit nicer. You can wave, smile, but I like the little bit of a validation strip you can go with there.
All right, I'll jump in. Yeah, it's always something situational and light and maybe like teasing or just flirty, just outright flirty. Like if the girl's a red dress, I use this one in Kenya. Actually, I was in Kenya, Africa, Nairobi, and a girl had a red dress, and I came up to her and it was something to the effect of, "Oh, I see you have a red dress. I have a red beard. You know, we'd look really good together. We match." Or if she has a hat, I might say, "Hey, cute hat, but you know, it'd look better on me." Or if we were like kind of like smiling at each other, if I had a choosing signal and we were like smiling and kind of like, you know, making eye contact from a distance, I go up to her and say, hey, you know, we were already flirting from a distance. So I thought it might be nicer to, you know, come up over. We're a little bit closer now. So always something light and situational on what she's wearing or my cold reading or how she reacts. I might just go in and say, hello, like, hey, you look friendly. And then the other half of my opener is how she reacted to me saying that. If she looks surprised, I'd call her out like, oh, you're surprised that I call you friendly? You don't get that very often. Just light, playful teasing and always something situational.
Marcus, I like what you said about your subcommunication being direct, but your verbals being indirect. I do a similar thing as well. And I am kind of old school. I'm going to go an opinion opener. I will open situational. I'll open direct. I'll open any which way I think the set can open. But what I typically want to do is demonstrate a bit of personality so the group has a chance to decide if they like me, if they want me to stay. So I typically will open the group. I'll run an opinion opener. Can you fall in love in 3 days? Before they have a chance to answer, I stack forward. I said, let me give you some context. My buddy went to Brazil. He was there for like 10 days. He spent the last 3 days with this amazing woman, according to him, the most amazing woman he's ever dated, ever met before. They went to some museums. They had some great food. They had a little sexy time. And he swears that he's going through a breakup. He knew her for 3 days. Is that even a thing? Can you fall in love in 3 days? And I'm typically not putting attention on the woman of interest. I'm typically addressing the group. I may even stack forward with another opener on top of that. But the point is, I'm not telegraphing interest. I'm trying to win over the group so they can get a feel for my personality. I want to cross the social hook point instead of making the woman decide on the spot how she feels about me.
To that, pardon me, to add on top of that, if we want to get a little bit more even high level, we've all talked about like verbal openers, right? But sometimes I'll use like physical. Again, depending on context, your body language, your subcommunication. But just to prove a point to one of my coaches at one point, it's like, yeah, you can just open without saying a word. And like you can like make eye contact with a girl way from a distance and just like point and like bring her over here. Like, come on over here. Just come on over here. Right. Again, though, this is a bit more advanced, but there are openers that go beyond just like what you say. Like you can just use pure body language, pure action. This is where like guys who have really good dance game, right? They can get on the dance floor, bust a move, and get a girl to come up to him, grind. Or you've got a table, you can like point to a girl and like, come up here. Like you, I choose you, come up here. Right. So there are openers that go beyond just words too.
Totally agree with that, JT. And I even I get approached from time to time. I would say I get approached a little more than the average guy does. There's some guys that get approached all the time. I think I get approached a little bit more than average. And it's not accidental. Some guys think that I'm just standing there and women approach me. No, I am actually intentionally beaming energy around the room, as abstract as that sounds, and I'm attempting to get women to see me and approach me. I'm typically leaving a lane open for them to approach to. Be aware where your wings are standing. If your wings are blocking all access to you, you got to shift your body on a little angle, maybe even tell your wing, hey, leave an alley open here for a woman that wants to approach, because you will get approached if you have good body language, good subcommunication, if you're putting a good energy out to people in the room. So great point, JT.
All right. What are some ways you can break into a group of people during night game without coming off as intrusive?
Yeah, so I'll start us off here. So people always say add value. Got to add value their night, bring value to the group. What does it mean to add value if you actually break it down? What that means is you approach and you accept that the burden is on your shoulders to provide the fun, interesting conversation. That's it. That's what giving value actually means. You come in and you're not interviewing them. You're not expecting them to, provide the conversation. You come with a full cup. You have a fun, interesting vibe, a fun, interesting interaction. It could be just, chatting about anything, but you bring a fun, interesting conversation into their group about literally anything.
Yep, totally agree. And that's kind of the point of the opinion opener, is to introduce a novel point of discussion. A lot of people are standing around, they're catching up about work, they're doing whatever, and you come in with something different, something interesting to talk to. You're helping break the ice. There's a saying that everybody wants to be your friend, they're just waiting for the invitation. And I typically take that frame when I go out, that everybody is my friend. I just haven't spoken to them yet. So I don't have an adversarial approach when I go out. I like to look at it as everybody is a potential connection, a potential friend. The family reunion frame, right? Everybody's either a family member or they're a friend of a family member. So I'm going to be pleasant and I'm going to add value to everyone. So I think the opinion opener is a good way to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a infill video of me approaching like a tent set. Like they have their own table and everything like that. Like all the students were like scared. All right, just watch me. So it's not high production. It's like literally the student just starts filming me. And literally my opener was simply, cheers, neighbors, like that. And very importantly, you guys got to understand is you want to engage and charm the group, right? Not locking in on like the one particular girl that you might find attractive. Like you split eye contact. It's like the little karaoke ball, right? It's like you split, you talk, you're like, hey, my name is JT. And you give energy to the entire set. You don't ignore the guy, especially if there's a guy there, right? You befriend him, talk to everybody, and like throw in whatever kind of jokes, banter, if you can think fast enough, and you ingratiate yourself. So charm the group before you ever decide to go with the girl that you find attractive.
I think if the guy's asking this question, you probably need experience in group dynamics outside of women or cold approach or however you want to describe it. So I think like if you're a guy that doesn't have much like social experience and then you're trying to dive into like a group dynamic, then maybe, spend some more time around your boys, being the center of attention there, leading the group. Maybe spend some time in, I don't know if you at uni or work or college or You could even attend, like, you can go to meetup groups and shit and just practice without like the pressure of like trying to hit on goals or being like so cold as going to a club. Just practice being the center of attention there. I think that's number one. Then, as you go in, yeah, the question framed, it kind of feels like, how do you like intrusively get into the group or some shit? Like, no, the women at clubs are fucking bored. People are bored during the day. They're all fucking, they're not having fun most of the time, right? It's really not that difficult to be interesting, right? If you just go up there and literally you can just ask where they're from, okay? And women are going to be like, oh my God, what an amazing, exciting question. Or they're like, okay, this is a random guy here. Like, some girls like trolling and shit like that or whatever it is, but at least like, it's not that difficult. The bar is set really low to actually be interesting. If you just have a good tonality, you're going to be sweet. My last point here is, if it's a mix set, which half these groups are going to be, they're the easiest sets in the world to fucking open, okay? Because I guarantee you, I've never been rejected by a guy, okay? I've never gone up to a guy and be like, hey, bro, how's your night? And he's like, excuse me, this is a, it's not going to happen. He's not going to be like, I'm not interested or some shit, right? Like, you go up to a guy and you're just nice to him, well, fuck it, compliment him. Just be like, bro, you're killing it, man. How do you have like fucking 10 girls around you? It's like one of my favorite openers. I'll go up and be like, okay, hey, listen, I ignore the fucking goals. I'm like, bro, I need to ask you a question. He's like, yeah, what's up? I'm like, how do you have 5 girlfriends? And I just fucking ignore them. And now he has to give me logistics. He's like, no, this is my girlfriend, or we're just friends or some shit. And I'm like, I don't believe it, man. These girls look into you. Now, hey, this guy's not going to be fucking trying to get rid of you. If anything, he's like, let's keep this motherfucker around. He's talking me up. But in the girl's mind, they don't see it that way. They don't see you as some guy being like, oh my God, this guy's amazing. You're saying it very confidently. You're almost like patting him on the back. You're almost looking down to him in a way. The girls recognize that. They now, you enter this set, it's entertaining. The guy feels safe. The girls see you as above the guy. You're ignoring them, so they're going to chase. It's like the easiest sets in the fucking club to open, so don't be scared of them. Just go up, chat to the guy. You can start there. That would be my advice.
Compliment a dude on his watch. Guys are always going out with these fancy watches. Tell me he has a nice watch. Boom, you're in. I have taken another approach too, where I'm not the center of attention. There are times where I charge in and I'm the one giving value and I'm all of a sudden kind of taking over the group. But there's a more low key approach that I've taken as well, where I'll walk up to a group and just ask if they'll adopt me. I'll say, I'm orphaned. My friends left me. Will you adopt me? Right. And they usually look at you for a second like they're not quite sure. And then I'll put my hands up and I'll say, look, if I'm not cool, tell me to fuck off at any point. I won't take it personally. What are we talking about here? Because usually they're talking about something. Well, we were just talking about our friend John and blah, blah, blah. So now I start listening to what they're talking about and I don't take the spotlight. I will just chill and I will demonstrate that I'm a laid back dude. I'm listening, I'm observant. Maybe I'll jump in and add a few bits to the conversation. And then little by little, again, I'm looking for IOIs. I'm looking for any of the women that are interested in me. If I think it's time to step up and share a story, crack a joke, I'll fill that space. But I don't always come in and try to hijack a set, right? Women are very sensitive to these dynamics. And sometimes you can come in and be the high value celebrity, right? Like if you're Leonardo DiCaprio and you walk into a group, it doesn't matter what they were talking about. Their eyes are on Leo now. He owns the set, right? But when you're just some random dude, if you're not social proofed yet, if nobody knows who you are, sometimes it's good to sort of play it a little bit more chill and then demonstrate more personality incrementally. So there's not one way to do it. And this is another way that's maybe a little bit counter to a lot of the advice in the community, which is a more under the radar approach. Again, I just want them to feel comfortable with my presence. That's the most important thing, is that I'm not rejected within the first 2 minutes or 5 minutes.
All right. Next one. 43% of Game Global members tend to get laid on the first date. 30% on the second date, 16% on a third date, 2% on the fourth date, 9% beyond the fourth date. How can other guys get laid on the first date?
I guess I'll go. I'm gonna have to drop off after this question. I set up like sort of like this dating triangle right here in Los Angeles, where getting the girl to commit to the first date, right? And I'll say something like, "Hey, there's this great XYZ place, like the Ghost of Marilyn Monroe, visits there. Great drinks, great apps, whatever. Get her out, sitting in some sort of like really comfortable private couch where we'll just get a little bit private talking and start to escalate a little. Now, if there's more than just kissing, like, let that happen, but I'm not gonna press it, right? This is the first sort of like 30 minutes. And then be like, hey, there's a poolside, beautiful tiki torches, DJ, and then I'm gonna move her, right? It's like, down the steps to the poolside, go use the restroom, step out. And as I'm waiting for her, I'll just like listen to the music and I'll just sort of like bebop. It's kind of like dance. And the idea is like I'm sexualizing myself so that when she sees me, first time coming out of the restroom, like confident, I'm cool by myself, and hopefully she sees me in a sexual light, right? There, half the time a girl will come up behind me, wrap her arms around me, and I know at that point she's thinking like sexual thoughts, right? And then we'll sit down, little cabana, very private. Now, if we haven't like kissed, now we'll go for that, right? Start to get a little bit more hot and heavy, deeper emotional connection. And then I'll drop the bomb, like usually early in text, like I said earlier, I'll have texted them, hey, send a picture of my dog. It's like, hey, lady says that friends don't let friends drink and drive, right? So I've already seen the dog, see if she's a dog person. It's like, hey, would you like to meet the cutest dog in all of Los Angeles? Of course, they're going to say yes. I'm like, all right, she's over there. Let's go. It's literally within walking distance. I'm like in the heart of Hollywood. Very easy. So that's my triangle. And it's like go to like, I even heard like, celebrities, like a hockey player got caught for having his own little triangle where the girls figure out like exactly which restaurant, which bar, and like the apartment building he was living in. So figure out your logistics. Logistics is half the battle. Amateurs study tactics, but experts study logistics. So anyways, guys, hope that was helpful. I'm going to sign off now. All right. Great
See you,
advice, great
JT.
content for everybody. Thank you,
See you,
and thank you,
brother.
Ice.
Thanks.
Later, guys.
Yeah, very good.
Oh.
Thanks, brother.
Gentlemen, there's a book Ryan Terabin just came out with called The Value of Others. He has some really great advice. And one of the things I love that he says is he goes, a date is a meetup and an opportunity for sex. If a girl is like, hey, let's meet up at noon, an hour away from your place for coffee, that's a meetup, but it's not an opportunity for sex. So just like what JT says, I think if you guys wanted to have sex earlier in the interaction, like for instance, I'm going out this week with these two girls are going on a date with me, and we're meeting at Katana, which is across the street from the Mondrian in Los Angeles. So I specifically picked a restaurant that's across the street from where I'm staying. And then there's also like a huge party that we're doing on Thursday, this huge breast cancer charity at the Sky Bar. And then I have a room overlooking the Sky Bar. So logistics are incredible. Like logistics are so good that a lot of times when a girl goes on a date with you, she'll know if she isn't going to have sex with you. I ask girls on my show on Access Vegas, I'm like, ladies, how many of you have gone on a date with a guy you knew you weren't going to have sex with him? And all of them raised their hand. At some point, they had done that once, which is crazy. It's very foreign to a guy. But a lot of times, if your logistics are good and your game is good, you can take a woman who like had no intent, not she didn't want to have sex with you, but she had no intention of having sex with you. And then she's like, her buying temperature and her state is so pumped up that she ends up having sex with you because she's having such a great time. There's this massive state break that happens when you go from the fun location to the hour-long drive back to your ranch. The hour-long drive, you go from the strip in Las Vegas to the 45-minute drive to like, Red Rock Canyon. Like I logistics are so incredibly important. In my bedroom, if I open up the blinds, I can see Aria, Cosmopolitan, Bellagio. I can see the wind from my bedroom. And so a lot of times the girl is like, it's this one of these things where like she feels safe. She's like, oh, my friends are over here at this place and I'm just right there. So logistics are really, really important, and they can actually trump a lot of times game when it comes to the late game, when it comes to closing. So I would recommend logistics. And the other thing is this one, man, a lot of these guys are asking this question. Your apartment smells like Chipotle. You have fucking weird ass bowls of nasty shit all over the place. You cooked beans and bacon and fucking eggs. It smells like egg farts in your apartment. You have a roommate who cooks he's like eating paleo. He's like training for a workout thing. And he cooks the nastiest smelling shit right before the girls come over. You got cats or dogs that peed and poop in your apartment. You can't smell the shit anymore. Your room is not made up. You have fucking like bottles of half-drank bottles of water and energy drinks all over your apartment, along with, like I said, like bowls of food and takeout shit, like bags full of trash in your apartment. That's the and so two things are happening. If a girl comes over, she doesn't want to fuck, but also in your mind, you know your apartment isn't ready for fucking. So you don't bring girls back because you aren't ready, because you didn't mentally prepare yourself for that thing. I leave here, my apartment looks like a fucking U.S. military sergeant. When I leave, we're ready for when she comes back. And if I even have my neighbor, I'll tell him, be like, hey, light all the candles in my apartment before it comes over. I got a lighting set up. You can see the whole strip of Las Vegas. If you don't mentally, the part of making your bed is you mentally are preparing yourself to bring girls home. I had one client, he was staying with me for a while and he was having troubles. Like, yeah, I'm not bringing these girls home. And I went out with him one time and I was like, there's no problem with the game. And then I looked in his room and there's just shit everywhere. And I was like, you know, you can't pull a girl home. So you leave your room looking like shit. That's another big issue. You're not mentally preparing yourself for success because your place is not ready for your apartment is not the fuck zone. You know it isn't. And you're either mentally sabotaging yourself or because you know you're not setting your place up for success. You know you can't pull a girl back anyway.
All right, what was the question? How to close on the first night? Is that right, us?
Yeah, basically more guys.
So yeah,
getting
I think
on first date.
guys,
It's
okay,
such a
yeah,
huge
all right. So
delay
yeah, your
would
close
be.
rate should be like fucking at least 80%, right? Nah, you're right, bro. You're right. So yeah, your close rate should be like fucking 80%, like at least. Like if you're going on a date with a girl, you already have attraction, she's already into you. You should be making this happen. And so there's a few things you have to do. I agree, logistics are important. It's going to make things way easier. But dude, I used to live an hour from the city and we're pulling girls like an hour away. So it's like definitely important. But I think like the biggest things are, number one, sexualizing the interaction, sexualizing the conversation. Make it clear what's happening later, or at least like have that plausible deniability there for her. Not thinking like, oh, this is completely just friends. This is like all it's going to be. And then you, at the end of the date, you're like, let's come back to mine and see what happens. And the girl's just not prepared, right? So sexualize the conversation. You want to seed the pool. So that goes back to the previous point. Make it clear early on in the interaction. Hey, later on, okay, we're going to go for a drink at mine. So now, if there is something that's going to stop you, like an obstacle, concern, objection, comes up early and you have time to deal with it without feeling like rushed or needy or pressured. So maybe she says like, I've got a dog at home I need to feed. Maybe she says, I've got work in the morning. Maybe she's on a period. Like these are all really important things to get early. And then the last point here is you have to get good at dealing with these concerns, okay? A girl can be attracted to you. She can be into you. But again, these reasons where girls aren't ready to sleep with you, it might be because they have a rule. I don't sleep with guys on the first night. It might be that she has work in the morning. So you need to fish for that, get it out early, and then deal with it. So just simply asking why, right? Why can't you come for a drink at mine? And if she says, I've got work, deal with it. Hey, listen, I've got work early too. I start at 7. I will make sure you get home in time. If she's got a period, tell her you don't give a fuck. Or if it's like, hey, I don't sleep with guys on the first night, there's plenty of ways to deal with this. I like to just agree with the fucking girl. I'd be like, yeah, that's actually a really good rule to have. Right? I think that's awesome. To be honest, like if I was a girl, I would have that rule. Most guys are fucking rubbish in bed. They can't even make you come once, let alone like 5, 6 times. Okay. They are either really needy and like blow up your phone and never leave you alone, or they just want to fuck you and they don't give a shit, right? If I was you, I would wait too. Okay. But listen, that's with every other fucking guy. Okay. Not me. All right. With us, we can have a lot of fun tonight. Right. And if I like you on this chemistry, of course I'm going to want to see you again. So there's ways to deal with this. You just have to get good at that ejection handling, sexualize, see the pull, and you'll deal with a lot of issues that you're facing.
I don't want to spoil the debate that's coming up between me and Marcus and a few others.
But started early.
so yeah, no, we won't get into too much debate here, but I'm just going to say this for guys that are looking to get laid on the first date. First of all, be prepared to burn through a bunch of great opportunities with women that you could have had a shot with had you played solid game. So that's number one. Be prepared to do that. Number two, I do agree that if that is what you want, you need to somewhat sexualize an interaction early. I'm a big fan of sexual subcommunication to sort of test the waters, where I may talk about something more benign, but underneath, brewing beneath the surface, there's a little bit of sexual energy leaking out of me. You do want to find out logistics early on, because if she can't go home with you that night, and that's really what your goal is, you're going to want to burn that opportunity earlier and then move on to your next one, right? I don't think that logistics are always handled logistically, though. I think that if you run solid game and she starts to like you, all of a sudden her logistics get better. Maybe her friend can drive the rest of the group home, right? Maybe she doesn't have to be into work quite so early tomorrow. So I will sexualize early. I will seed. I'll find out logistics. But first of all, guys that want to get laid on the first date, be prepared to fuck up a bunch of great opportunities. We'll save the rest for debate time.
Yeah, I think you're completely fucking wrong, but we'll debate that later.
Sounds good.
Well, Eric,
wait. I think there's like we can do Schrodinger's cat here. Like I think because I was listening to both of your ideas here, and this is kind of what I think. I let her sexualize things. So it's kind of what Marcus is saying, because so Marcus wants to sexualize things, and what Erik is saying is if you over sexualize things, then you could blow out the interaction. And I see both of your points. What I want to do is get her to sexualize things. So if she sexualizes things, then it's not going to blow out the interaction, even if we don't sleep together. And I'm always asking for compliance. So I don't need, so people talk about IOIs. I don't believe, and this is where me and Mystery disagree. I don't believe in IOIs. I believe in IOCs. I want indicators of compliance. She followed me back to my place. She took her shoes off. She got in my bed. These are indicators of compliance. At that point, Erik, if I have a girl in my bed, she's taking her shoes off and she's laying next to me, cuddled to me. If I go make a move to try to have sex with her on a first date, there's nothing weird about that. She's not, in fact, she's going to hang out with me. Even if she doesn't want to have sex with me, it's not going to blow out the date. So I think there's a way to do what both of you guys are saying, where you still play good game, you don't blow out the set, and at the same time, you can have sex on the first date. I think
it's about knowing how to sexualize well. Like the problem is when people hear sexualizing, they think it's, oh, I need to like make out with this girl, or I need to touch her. Okay. Like that's when I say sexualizing, I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about creating a sexual vibe, building tension, and sexually like DHVing, right? So similar to what Michael's saying is like, yeah, getting the girl to sexualize, essentially like getting you to invest in that, getting you to chase through that. So yeah, obviously like someone talked about autistic game earlier. Like if you start to sexualize and build sexual tension with this girl, and you notice she's uncomfortable about that, you're not just going to push through and blow it out and you're like, fuck, I missed an opportunity. You're actually going to sit there and think, okay, I've lost compliance, right? I don't have compliance to this action. What is the reason behind this? Is it a limiting belief? Is it that I just don't have enough attraction? So to Erik's point, I want to go back, build that attraction. Suddenly, like logistics change. Suddenly, her opinions around should this be a more sexualized interaction? Should I sleep with him? Might change. So anyway, we'll save.
Yeah,
we'll save.
Guys, we could do all the discussion on this, because I'm sure Marcus has some great techniques on this too. I am a big fan of getting her to turn things sexual. You can get away with so much more. Like I love to play innocent. I do this thing sometimes where I'm like hanging out with a bunch of girls and I'm like, these women are just, I'll have a video up. These women are just trying to use me for sex. And they'll literally just grab my dick. Like they turn things sexual. I found that when you turn things sexual, you get both things. You get to play solid game and get laid on the first date. So that's what I really like to do. Also, women, having multiple women around, because they're competing for your attention, they will turn things sexual quicker. If you guys want great examples of me getting girls to turn things sexual, watch my panel show, Access Vegas. I'm really good at getting the girls to turn things sexual, so they can never say that I did any of that shit. One of my favorite questions to ask girls all the time, I said, like, be real. Like, what did your boyfriend do to make you cheat on him? Ask girls this, what did we know it's his fault. What did your boyfriend do to make you cheat on him? And she'll turn things sexual from there. But that's one thing I really, really like to do, because you get to do both. I really do feel like you can get to do both, because I want a situation where if I let a girl know I want to have sex with her and she's just not comfortable in the moment, I don't want to blow it out to where I don't see her again. And at the same time, I do expect the vast majority of the time I'm going to have sex on the first date.
All right, well,
getting the woman to sexualize the interaction early on night one, it's doable, but sometimes it's difficult to evoke that sexuality and get those sexual IOIs or IOCs, as you call them. Yeah. I like that. You know, Mystery will tell you too that an IOI is an indicator of compliance too. So they are kind of one and the same. But I've found that for night one, if that's really what I'm going for, I often have to strike first with a little bit of sexuality. I'm going to throw a sexual wrench into the gears to see how she reacts to it. If I can get her to do it first, great. You know, I've just found that when I play a solid game, when I draw things out a little bit more, that's when I'm going to get the sexual IOIs evoked. That's when she's going to sort of sexualize. If I slow it down, she'll speed it up, right?
Or another idea is just play the complete opposite. I'm a puritanical Christian. I think sex is completely disgusting. I can't believe people have sex. You heard what Marcus said before. He goes, most guys are terrible in bed. I would say something like, yeah, most guys are terrible in bed anyway. I don't know how you guys ever have sex with guys. Women are disgusting, or like men are disgusting. Sex is gross. And the girl will stop and be like, no, I fucking love sex. I love now she just turned things sexual. I'll do that too. I'll play innocent or naive sometimes, or I'll make it really funny, or I'll push in the opposite direction. Or like I said before, like a scoundrel, like, what did he do to make you cheat on him? And she'll go over. I like to do things, play these games to make her make it sexual. Because as long as she made the first move, you just have this carte blanche to go as far as you want. And then it's next thing you know, you're like, you guys are in a unisex bathroom having sex, like right after you just met her. Like that's the thing that happens. But I like to let her do it because when she does it, I have to worry so much less about calibration when she's the one making things sexual.
Yeah, I think I think you're leading, what's the saying? Like leading the horse to water or some shit, right? Leading the girl to your dick. It's yeah, like I think you're still making the move there, but it just to the goal doesn't feel that way.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's essentially like you are making it sexual. Like, hey, what made your boyfriend cheat on you? Like, that's a slightly sexualized conversation, but it's like 1%, and then she goes 5%, and then you go 6%, and then she goes 10. So I like to see it as, yes, I'm leading this interaction. I'm moving it towards that angle, but it never feels like the girl can never turn around and be like, that's too much, right? So I would start with like, hey, what's the type of guy you're into? And then I'll tell her like, no, I think you probably prefer this type of guy. She's like, oh my God, you're right. Now I have some authority. And then I like start asking some more questions, kind of lead her there. So yeah, I think there's like a right way to go about this that builds a lot of sexual attraction. You can have these conversations and the girl can leave that conversation thinking like, fuck, this guy gets it. Okay. He's not trying to make out with me. He's not trying to like fucking grab my pussy just yet, but he gets it, right? He understands me, and he's probably going to be really good in bed if he understands all these things. And so girls will, they'll chase after that. They'll want that. So yeah, anyway, I don't want to get into this too much. We'll chat about this in a few days' time. And
I'm confused. Can I interrupt for a second? Do you guys ever have negative experiences or see anything wrong with a woman who, out of the bajillion guys of the planet, she could choose to be in a room alone with, or in a restaurant at a table alone with? Any resistance to you bringing it, like making it sexual? I can't even fathom that there would be pushback for a girl who did spend 2 hours getting ready for you, put on her heels, are uncomfortable as fuck to walk in, her makeup, blew out her hair, did whatever to show up to meet you, and assuming she's not ugly as fuck, had unlimited other options, and she's gonna be weirded out when you make things sexual.
Yeah,
maybe I'm not
100%.
following, but
yeah, no, 100%. There'll be different reasons.
You get pushback on that.
Hey,
It's
you
not
will get
pushback.
100%. You know, 100%. You will, because
Sure.
there's a
Can
few reasons,
you elaborate?
right?
Because
Yeah,
I don't think I've ever
100%.
experienced that.
100%. Okay. So if a girl is really, really into a guy, okay, she's like, this is the coolest guy I've ever fucking met in my entire life. Okay. And then he starts making it sexual. She might think like, holy fuck, I don't want to ruin this. Okay. I don't want to act like a fucking whore right now, because if he just sees me as that, maybe he just wants to have sex with me once and never see me again. This is really prominent in Eastern Europe. Okay. Like, damn, I'm going to pretend to be such a good girl because I think that's what most guys like. So you might get initial pushback there, and then you might have to be very clear. Listen, okay. I would say something like, listen, I'm Australian. All right. I think women are awesome when they're very open-minded. This is one thing I value. Okay. I think you should be honest, do whatever the fuck you want. I don't think you should care what anyone else thinks. Right. So that's one way to deal with like that one little objection. Other girls, so you have the whole, like, I think is really awesome. Some girls, it's a slut shame thing. Like, they just brought up thinking sex is bad, and they have like really limiting views around this. So teaching them that like sex isn't bad. Okay. You can have it, you can enjoy it, blah, blah. Other girls are worried about just never seeing the guy again. So if I have sex with him, I give away my power, which is like a lot of times true. and they use it as like a game tactic. They're taught this in fucking online books and shit. So maybe they're thinking like, hey, I'm going to play this a little bit and I'm going to try making chase, right? And that way, maybe I'll get to see him a few more times. And so, yeah, you'll face all of these like little objections and shit. I agree with you. She's not going to reject the idea because she's not into you.
Like, I think it'd be weird if you didn't sexualize it. That would make it awkward. That would blow it out.
Yeah, like my huge thing is sexualizing. The number one attraction trigger I think you can show for most men is sexual authority. I also do sex coaching. I run like BDSM workshops. I'm all about sexualizing.
That's awesome.
But I think it's important to know that there are going to be like certain levels of pushback there, and there's ways to deal with those though.
Maybe it's because my style, even from the initial beginning, from the texting and stuff, is very romantic. You could say like lover boy game. So she's not thinking. I mean, she always has the thought in the back of her head, like the what if and the anxiety. But she's not, at least as much with probably with other guys, she's not worrying about, oh, he just wants to fuck me one time and then leave. In Latin culture, especially where I live in Brazil now, actually leaving Brazil, but where I live, the flake rate, if no one's ever lived in Brazil for a while or traveled to Brazil and stayed here for a significant time, you guys cannot imagine the flake rate here. I don't care what you think about any other market. I've picked up girls from Tennessee to Taipei, from California to Kenya at this point. I know every fucking dating market in and out. Nothing can compare to the flakiness of a Brazilian girl. So I got really, really good at my qualification. I got really, really good at making them feel special. There's something about our chemistry, our understanding, our sense of humor. We both hate wokies, and we're going to make dark jokes about eating babies, like whatever the fuck it is. There's something about our unique chemistry. And I found that reduced my flake rate a lot. And then also Brazil's a very, very sexual culture too. And I don't think I fucked a true like American girl since like 2016. I think that's the last time I put my dick, maybe like 2018 once. Anyway, I digress, but so maybe like in Latin, what'd you say?
I say congratulations. That's I'm
you.
Happy for you.
You're clean now. You're absolved. You're clean. You're pure now. Yeah. You don't have all our fucking cholesterol and our high sodium content and our wokeness. Yeah, it's good job.
Yeah, the seed oils. But I don't know. I'm off on a tangent a little bit, but yeah, part of it is dating market, and like I'll say things outright to girls. Again, it's also Latin culture. They're more submissive. They respond better to dominant men. But I'll say things to a girl like out of the blue. Like we'll be eating. I'm like, how do you like your mac and cheese? Oh, it's good. Okay, cool. Well, what if this? What if I just treated you like a delicate, sweet little princess in the streets, but like my dirty little sex slave in the bedroom? How would you like that? And they just get like, you see like their eyes just like they won the lottery, like they know they have a winning lottery ticket, but they don't want anybody else. Like that's their reaction. And I don't know. I'll leave it open to some conversations.
I agree. Like it's going to be similar in Eastern Europe. Women respond really, really strongly to dominance there. So yeah, I mean, look, you're probably going to still, I imagine, like you could let us know, you're probably going to still face some girls that are like, oh my gosh, no, I'm not sure, and blah, blah. But yeah, for the most part, if you can display dominance with like South American girls, with Eastern European girls, that's going to like trump a lot of other things. And I think like you're missing an opportunity if you don't do that. I think there's like ways to transition in that, which you're probably using, and there's ways to make it smooth. But yeah, like being able to demonstrate that, I think is like a game changer. There's a lot of guys missing with these.
It has to be balanced out with like the hardcore qualification and like I don't say lover boy game, because I know that lover boy can mean like other shady things now, apparently, these whatever you want to call it, the romantic style game. I think it's very well balanced by that. I don't think that she's thinking, at least, you know, as high as other guys, that I just want to fuck her once and then leave her. I think that has to be balanced out. I think that's kind of the key.
So Casey, let me just ask you a quick question, because I just want to clarify. So you've never sexualized an interaction and gotten pushback from it?
Not on a date. Or put it this way, like maybe I've had like bad first dates, but I wouldn't say that was like per se the reason. Like it was going great until I tried to kiss her, then it got weird. And I've never had that.
Okay, because I feel like that's a pretty universal hurdle for men to get over, whether a dating coach, a newbie, an intermediate. We've all sort of gone for the kiss a little too soon, said a little something that was over the line. So yeah, I'm just trying to get some clarity.
I mean, I'm sure I've done that, but just not typically on a date, right? And in cold approach situations, yeah, I'm sure I fucked it up by moving things forward too quickly all the time. But a date is different because, again, and I do a lot of voice notes. I always do a video call. I do hard. I'm super good. I can qualify a girl on anything. I can say, "What's your favorite color? White or black?" I can qualify like both, like opposite end of the spectrum. I can find a
You're
reason.
racist, no matter what you
Yeah,
say. You're
exactly,
racist.
But
No matter
yeah,
what.
I mean, it
All right,
sounds
so
like you're
a fucking
building
bigot.
up in text, right? So like
What'd you
you
say?
have a really you're building up in text. Like before these girls get on the date, they're pretty down. Like for instance, like I've done, I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of like straight to the home dates. I've never had an issue ever, right? Like these girls come over in lingerie. I'm usually sexting them beforehand. Like you're never gonna fucking face an issue there, of course. So I think like the amount of like pre-game or whatever you want to call it, there could be an
Yeah.
argument to strengthen Eric's point that maybe it is already long game. Maybe you already have been texting him for a little bit. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, like these things we can test. It's like saying like, have you ever got pushback from like seating the pool and trying to pull? Does that mean you like stop trying to do it? No, you see the pool, figure out the ejection. I think it's the same thing with sexualizing. Like you sexualize, if there's like slight pushback, you just pull back a little bit, figure out what it is, and the earlier you do that, the more time you have to do it. But anyway, well, I think this is turning into the debate instead of in 2 days.
Yeah,
time.
sorry, I didn't mean to ruin you
No,
guys'
no,
next
no.
content.
Yeah.
Good getting your
No, go.
opinion.
Well, one thing I wanted to say too, maybe this will be, I don't know, since I'll try to change the subject slightly, but not entirely. What I was going to say, something controversial is, and probably most of the guys listening to this podcast whenever it comes out, or this YouTube video, may not be in the situation, but for guy, like at least every guy on the panel will understand this. In many circumstances, a lot of nuance to this, so don't get too literally, but in many circumstances, you shouldn't try too hard to get laid on the first date per se, because those are sometimes the lower quality girls. When I think back to like the few times that I've laid like true nines, like actual hardcore nines in her worst photo by anyone's standards, like the ones that even like are rare for guys like us, it was almost never on the first night. These girls are just, they have higher standards, they're pickier, they're more picky about who they're going to let get on top of them and flop around for a bit. And because they can, they're going to make you wait. So I find that for the higher quality, more beautiful, and again, there's so much nuance. Like, are you a tall, good looking white guy in the Philippines? Okay, you can, it's like that new Tinder meme that came out. It's like popular on Reddit, where like the Chad said in his profile, he just got out of jail for abusing women. Like you could be that guy. You could open with, "Hey, I just got out of jail for beating a woman." But tall white guy in the Philippines, you're still gonna get laid on the first date. But I would argue that a lot of times you shouldn't try, because it means you're going after low quality girls in some circumstances.
I don't know. I'm curious what Michael thinks here. Like I've pretty much like most of the girls I've ever slept with has been very early, like almost mostly first night. And I'm just trying to think if I get more, like if it's more difficult with hotter girls. I think it's more difficult to build attraction with hotter girls, obviously. But when it comes to like objections, I think it's more just like cultural. Like I find in America, girls are like they could be super hot, but they're just like down first night. It's like culturally acceptable. Whereas like you go to Ukraine, right? Or maybe not now, but a few years ago. Like trying to
I have safety. Come with me. I have safety.
Exactly. It's
it's easy to pull to a bomb
basically
shelter. If you want to set up logistics, just find the nearest bomb shelter. It's easy to pull.
Exactly. It's the best place,
I shouldn't
damn.
say that. I shouldn't say that.
The ratio
that'd
that's
be
pretty bad. Too
interesting,
many
though.
dudes, but you can
cut that part
Eastern
out.
Eastern Europe, sorry, is there's like a lot of rejection. So you could have like a average Polish girl, right? Like 7 out of 10 or whatever. And she'll give a lot of, "I don't do this. This is not fair." And they are a lot harder to close than like a 10 in America. So I think it is more like culturally as opposed to looks I've kind of noticed. But yeah, I guess maybe in America, like hotter girls might be like slightly more difficult or more picky or whatever it is. But yeah, for me, it's like very much cultural.
So going back to what you said before, it definitely cultural. So I'm only talking to American girls, so I have to swim through this fucking ocean of obesity and what's it called? These girls feel like entitlement. It's ridiculous levels of entitlement. I still agree that they'll have sex on the first date, but it's just like it's going back to what you said before, Casey. Like for me, I almost exclusively go out with girls. Maybe you guys wouldn't think they're 10s, but they get attention like they're 10s, meaning these are girls that have 3-4 million followers on Instagram, stuff like that, or girls that are very, very hard to get their attention. And in these situations, when I let them make things sexual, or if I have the bigger, better deal, or if they feel enough psychological pressure from other women like approving of me through pre-selection or mate choice copying, those are the times when I end up sleeping with the girls who are 10s on the first date. that's usually what happens. But like what Marcus is talking about before, I'm usually talking to girls who initially don't like me, and I make them like me. I generate attraction through different cues in evolutionary psychology. So from that standpoint, while I definitely agree that if I went through and made every date sexual, I would definitely have some success. There are some girls who are so entitled that it's much easier for me to let them make things sexual, and then for them to also see that my ex-girlfriend was like a world-class bikini model. That also helps me with them. So I'm basically, if you guys are on a date with a girl, you've been texting her and things are sexual, she's kind of letting you know she already likes you before the date. Casey, I've been on dates with girls where like the girl, like in her mind, I have no shot because she's so fucking, in her mind, she's so entitled and attractive. It's just an American thing. And even then I'll end up sleeping with her on the first date because she's like, wow, I didn't realize how scarce this guy was, or what I had to do to keep his attention. So that's the only reason why I would say I don't try to make things overtly sexual on the first date.
So first of all, I don't think that a woman hooking up early says anything about her quote unquote quality, right? I just don't think through that frame. I've met great women that wanted to withhold and wait on sex. I've met great women that wanted to have sex quickly. So a woman's, sexual, a woman's sexual promiscuity is not something that I'm judging, right? Number two, Michael brings up a good point. It's not whether she's a mid girl or like a super hot girl, right? That's another frame that I try not to get into, but it's what she thinks of herself. There's evolutionary psychology that has shown that when a woman thinks that she's more attractive relative to other women, she behaves differently when selecting mates. And there's a whole bunch of nuance to get into on that. So it's not necessarily, is she a 10? It's, does she think she's a 10? Or does she think compared to other women that she's a higher ranking woman? That's when you're going to see some behavioral differences. Again, I want to save maybe some of this stuff for the debate, but
yeah. The
Yeah.
thing is, guys, if I was going to rate women, I don't rate them on their physical attractiveness anymore. I rate them on the level of stimulus they need. And because I live in Las Vegas and I spend a lot of time in Los Angeles, the women I'm around need so much fucking stimulus that it works against you if you don't have the stimulus to provide them. But if you do, or if you know how to create it, then it works very much in your favor. My ex-girlfriend, she was a bikini model from Frog Level, Arkansas, that did not have an Instagram, and she was 20 years old when I met her. So very, extremely attractive, extremely low levels of stimulus that she needed. And that's why it worked for us for 2 years. With other girls, it's like, I know very quickly, like insanely hot. I know that if I always have the key to the VIP, I always know the best parties to go to. I'm going to be able to sleep with this girl very easily. But I also know her necessity for stimulus makes her a very poor partner long-term.
Interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. And also I think our perspectives are a bit different. I think we're operating at a bit of a different level. I think we're closing on the first date a lot more than the average guy. But yeah. And when I said high quality, I meant more on looks, but I do look at like personality and all that stuff now, especially now I'm 36. I'm getting old, so I need to make a baby within the next 4 years. So I really got to pay attention to all that stuff.
I'm engaged, man. I'm hoping for that in the next few years as well. So a lot of what I'm talking about has been my experience in the past. So when I speak in present tense, really, I'm putting myself in the past and remembering what it was like in that present moment. So I am typically not going for it on the first night. I'm open-minded to it. When I go into an interaction, when she's ready, she's ready. If she's ready and I'm ready and it's night one, I'm open to it, right? I've just found that generally speaking, it's not the way to go. My goal is not, how do I get this woman on night one? So that's another piece of advice I would give guys watching this that want to know how can they get more hookups on night one. It's kind of, don't have that idea so fixed in your mind, focus on playing the game. And if it happens to be night one, great. And if it doesn't, well, you're probably falling into a better pattern, in my opinion, anyway. And again, no judgment toward the women that want to do it on night one. No judgment towards guys that want to do it on night one.
Feel slut shamed.
I've just, no slut shaming. Exactly.
Marcus, I can't believe you want to have sex with women on the first night.
Listen,
I'm going to slut shame you. I can't believe you would do that. That's so crazy. I thought it was a safe place.
This is I'm gonna go cry in the corner.
Yes,
This is,
listen, dude.
thanks, Eric.
Listen. I have game. I'm a pretty fucking cool guy. If a girl wants to sleep with me on the first date, and I'm the first guy she's ever slept with on the first date, I'm used to it. Like they should. I'm pretty awesome. I don't blame women for not wanting to have sex with men on the first date because most dudes are fucking weird, and I'm not. So that it's not confusing to me.
Michael, I want to ask you to shift the topic a little bit. You spoke about attention and its relative effect on the way you see like short term and long term. Can you talk about that in terms of the long term, like how you see attention the girls require?
So there's two different things. First off, this is my anecdotal experience, and then I started looking for other data, like in evolutionary psychology, on this concept. So if for men, by the way, it's the same thing for men. When you show images of non-contextualized, sexualized images to men, they find their partners to be less desirable. This is a study. It's an Evolution of Desire by David Buss, and they go over this concept. For women, it's a similar situation. If women need more, if they need more stimulus, then we'll use the extreme example. You guys see these photos of women paying Chris Brown $1,200 to take a photo with them. This is a type of situation. You guys know inherently a woman that would pay Chris Brown $1,200 to take a photo is a terrible, terrible partner. Because what's going to happen is she's more likely to need stimulus. And when Chris Brown, Tyga, Michael B. Jordan slides in her DMs, she's more likely to answer those questions. There's a huge fitness model that I'm seeing right now, and I'm sitting at dinner, and she got a call from Donald Trump Jr. And I was like, and she picked up, she's like, oh yeah, Donald Trump calls me every once in a while, and I'm like, the fact that she would require that much stimulus makes me kind of think that she's not going to make a great partner.
Sorry, what do you mean by stimulus? Can you define that for me or help me understand?
So stimulus can be everything from, from a woman, it can mean a million different things, but stimulus can be everything from she's consistently staring at the better looking guy. She needs to like other dudes' photos. She continually talks to her exes. She needs to always stunt on other people. She's a habitual poster on social media. Like every day she needs to post a thirst trap. There's a couple things here. Number one, the GSS did a survey where they surveyed 8,000 women who were married, and they asked these women anonymously, which ones of you cheated and which ones of you didn't cheat. The ones who did cheat had 230% more sexual partners before they were married than the women who didn't cheat. So that's a necessity for stimulus. If women are consistently they want more validation from sex, that's a function, that's a form of stimulus that she consistently needs in order to feel validated. If you deal with a woman who has borderline personality disorder, she needs constant stimulus and validation in order to make herself feel good. And that is a very dangerous person to be in a long-term relationship with. What I want is someone who the main source of stimulus they need is either themselves or me. That's the main source of stimulus I need them to desire. If their source of stimulus is consistently other people liking their posts, or other high status men liking their or engaging with them, to me that is a huge warning sign. There was another one. Do you guys know who Austin Dunham is? He's a content creator, real good looking, like a male model. Austin came on my show, and what guys will pay Austin to actually message their girlfriends to see whether or not these girls will be open to cheating. And he wrote down a bunch of data on this. And the thing that he found was that the girls who posted more thirst traps and the girls who posted more like lascivious photos were far more likely to answer his messages and far more likely to meet up with him on a date. So again, women who needed more stimulus were more likely to stray, and women who've had more sexual partners before they were married, because their ability to imprint is lessened because they've had more sexual partners, are more likely to stray. For me, the number one concern of a long-term partner is going to be loyalty. And so it's going to be harder for her to be loyal if she is more attuned to different stimulus from other people. There's always a bigger, better deal to pull her away. What I want is a woman who's obsessed. She's like, the best thing in the world is for her to lay on the couch with me and the cat and watch Netflix. She needs no greater stimulus than that. That is a girl who's probably less likely to stray. What I don't want is Megan Thee Stallion. I don't want Cardi B. I don't want Nicki Minaj, where it's like, I need the bag and I have the money. And like you guys saw the video recently where Cardi B is like bragging about cheating on Offset. Did you guys see this video? She's like literally bragging about how she fucks other dudes behind his back. And it's like, this is an extreme narcissistic level of a necessity for stimulus. I want very low levels of stimulus. Now, here's the part, right? Here's the problem. Which type of girls need less stimulus, a lot of times it's younger girls. And so this is where we get into the, oh, Michael, you're 47 and you date 20-year-old women. A lot of times I'm going to date 20-year-old women because they have less baggage that they're bringing along with them. They tend to need less stimulus at that point, and so they tend to be safer bets. That's just what I've seen.
I'm not sure. Like, I'll share my opinion on this. I agree. Like, I feel like girls that are just seeking external validation and don't really have any self-worth, and they just view themselves as like whoever popular they can be around, or whoever like DM them or some shit. Yeah, obviously I think they're awful partners, right? Younger girls, like, I feel are probably more like this. Like, I feel like a girl is a little bit more older. I'm speaking on the averages, obviously. Is probably going to be a little bit more grounded, or at least you know what to expect. I feel like a 20-year-old can change so much in 5 years, whereas a 26-year-old probably doesn't change as much. Now, I'm not saying that I don't like younger girls. It's just I think when picking a partner is probably something to keep in mind. The lay count, I think if you're comparing it to like a virgin girl, it's something like you're 16 times more likely for that girl to cheat or some shit. If you're comparing it to the average, I think it's like 16%, which is what I had down in my notes from earlier. So yeah, I think it's important to look at lay count, but I think guys, when they worry about cheating, focus way too much on it. I think like looking at, as you said, loyalty. Like, does she lie to you? Does she lie to her friends? How does she treat them? Has she ever cheated
before? Does she lie
before?
for no reason? The big one is, does she
lie
lie
for
for
no reason?
no reason?
Yeah,
That's the
exactly.
big one. She lied when there was no reason to lie. That is the biggest red flag to me.
Yeah. And then there was a massive study that looked at cheating recently. And they said like the biggest thing is like basically everything interpersonal. The biggest predictor of cheating is how satisfied people are in their relationship, which kind of sounds obvious. But I think for most guys, if you're worried about it, just make sure you have a good relationship. So this is going to follow like all the principles of like not chasing too hard, keeping the power, like understanding how to communicate with your girl. But like if the girl's satisfied in the relationship, for the most part, she's not going to cheat. Like that's just something you have to keep in mind. But I think all these little red flags are important to think about as well. But yeah, I agree if women are just like externally validated, like these girls that are fucking on Instagram all the time and, you know, constantly worried about like what photo shoot they're getting done and what they like, if they're spending time with you and they're more worried about that, I think that might be a good short-term partner. Could be a lot of fun. Yeah, like a long-term partner, I think would be great. I agree with that.
And for everybody watching at home, if you're wondering, like, how to identify, who these high stimulus girls are, these like terrible partners, they tell on themselves through social media like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
The Dubai trips, the lewd photos, you know, showing a lot of skin, twerking, showing their ass. They are a hostess, yet they're wearing $1,500 red bottoms. They're always out in the most 5-star places. Their story highlights are Paris, Dubai, Rio, Turkey, etc., Istanbul, here. And again, you know that they're a hostess. What else? What else do they have on their Instagrams? Like
to be fair, it depends where they come from, right? Like you could have like an American girl that has a business, but yeah, if she's some random fucking 20-year-old.
Oh yeah, yeah, because all the really really hot 21-year-olds that go to Michael's pool parties are Wall Street traders. When have you met a hot 21-year-old American girl with her own money?
I'm just saying in general, like there are girls.
You're absolutely right, bro. I'll tell you a story.
Money.
I'm walking this girl back to her room, and she's like, "Hey, listen, I got to get up early, whatever. I'm not really sure what's going on." Or like, I'm trying to understand. I'm like, this girl has just really been into me the whole night. And we're walking to her room in the Encore. So you guys know, if you ever walked in the Encore, when you're walking north, there's 2 elevator banks. One of them goes to the normies, the normal suites, and one of them goes to the $2,500 a night suites. And I'm walking her to the normie suites because she paid for her own room. And I know she did, because the night before I got her a room during my birthday for fucking MGM. But she pulls me over to the expensive suites. And then, like, I look down at her shoes. It's so funny because what Casey just said. I look down at her shoes and I'm like, dude, those are $2,700 fucking Louis Vuittons. And she's like, yeah, I can't bring you up to my room right now. And I'm like, oh, fuck. You got a dude up there. Like, I just it hit me and it's like, oh, you got a dude. I was like trying to understand what the fuck's going on. I'm like, there's no way in fuck you're paying $2,600 of your own money. You're 24 years old. There's no way you're doing that. And then I look down at her shoes and I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I'll see you later when this guy leaves or whatever. And it was just so like, you don't see it at first. Just like Casey said before, I'm not saying that there has never been a single woman who went to Dubai by herself and paid her own money. I'm just saying it's super fucking rare that shit happens, right? I'm just saying, when she's out there wakeboarding, just know that at the end of the wakeboarding trip, she fucked a dude, and just be cool with it. That's fine. Just charge it to the fucking game. Move on. She's
that is the best indicator is their social media, right? Blue check, followers.
Yeah.
That's
so
how
Michael,
you know.
Michael, I mostly agree with what you've said. I will agree though with Marcus and say that I think that the younger women are typically more the high stimulus ones, right? And they can change in 5 years. It's hard really to say when you.
Yeah. So here's the problem. There's another study that comes out. This is where things are getting really ugly for us in general, is that as women will turn 30, their standards go up. This is like, you want to know
yeah, but I think that's a good thing. I personally, like, I want to go with high standard. I agree. I think like younger 20-year-olds, they don't know what the fuck they want. They probably don't have as much self-value. They probably, like, I actually see this as a positive. Like, if a girl hits 30 and she's like, hey, I really know what I want and I got high standards, I think that's good. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Marcus, do you deal with girls that have low standards? Sorry.
No.
Because I never met a girl who has low standards.
It's not a function of standards. Maybe I'm using the wrong word. In their mind, their standards are going up. I believe what's happened, and this is just what I've seen, is they become more delusional. I had a girl come on my show just recently, and she's like, ladies, when you just turned 40, don't worry about it. You don't need to rush into having kids. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? You just turned 40 and you don't need to rush into. And she was like literally saying like, I have a friend of mine, she just had a kid at 50. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here, dude? Like, you're actually telling women. You guys remember that show Suits? It was like Gabrielle Mecht and Patrick Adams. It's a really popular show in the States called Suits. There's like near the end of the show, there's these two people, Louis Litt and Sheila Zaz, and they're 50 years old trying to have a kid. And I'm like, this is the message that women are getting. And because of that, they're waiting later and later to have kids. And I'm seeing this over and over again when girls are coming on my show and they're like, they were cool with a guy who treated them well in their 20s. Now they turn 31 and 32 and he needs to make $1 million a year. Like, all of a sudden this shit came out of nowhere. So I'm either way, they'll say one thing and do another, but I've just seen that instead of women getting older and actually lowering the barrier for them to get into a relationship, they're raising it. And and while I understand it's good for a woman to have high standards, especially if she's my daughter, the problem is we're getting the lowest level of marriage and the lowest like fertility rates are dropping because women, when they're actually less desirable, are asking more from men.
Yeah, but I think that's probably men's fault too. Like, I'm thinking like men's prime, what we say is like 40 or some shit, right? It's obviously all
well, it depends on who you ask. If you ask Mac and Murphy, it's 29.
Yeah.
But if you look at the dating app, it's so funny. The blue pill dudes are like, no, these young girls don't want older guys. And I'm like, then what? How the fuck do you explain my life, bro?
Yeah, stupid. So
I'll say,
but I think like
say
women's
this too,
prime is probably, sorry, I'll just quickly say, I think women's prime is probably moving a little bit too. Like, men aren't expecting to have kids at like 21 and be married anymore. Sure. Like, men want to get married later and have kids later. There's plastic surgery and all this shit. Like, I think women are looking after their beauty and health a lot longer these days, even though it's like a whole shorter than men's. But I feel like that is their prime is probably getting pushed back a little bit too.
Agree.
But I agree. Like, these girls in fucking big cities or some shit that, again, like external validation, they're all over social media. They want a guy with like $2 billion or some shit. I'd like to think that is, let's say, like biased towards those regions. Like, sitting here in Sydney, like I just don't see that. Like, most girls you meet aren't looking for like some super fucking rich guy or having these like crazy expectations. And same in like, obviously, I'm sure South America and Eastern Europe and whatever. It's probably a lot in these like very central areas in America, is my guess here. But yeah, I mean, it's awful if you're meeting a girl that's fucking past her prime and then acting like she's the hottest thing in the world. But it's the worst thing is for her because she probably just never ends up finding someone, right? But yeah, hopefully that's not the trend we're going for.
I just want to throw this layer on there though. Michael, you did say that this was like generally speaking, these high stimulation girls are not going to be as good in long-term relationships, right? And I do think that we need to point out there are some anomalies there, because there are quite a few women out there that, like men, want to have their fun, want to party in college, want to be a little bit wild, but in the back of their mind, they always want to find that right dude and settle down and have a family. So I think that there's
them wanting to get married. I agree with you. Them wanting to stay in a marriage, it becomes much harder the more partners that they've had before they were married.
I think that's true for guys though too. It's kind of like once you've overeaten, I've been in phases of my life where I've eaten too much, right? My relationship with food is fucked, like for life. You know what I mean? To go from like overeating to eating healthy usually takes a lot of discipline, so I think somebody that's indulged sexually, that's lived a more adventurous life, Is it a little bit harder for them to settle down eventually and like kind of leave that lifestyle behind? Is it always going to kind of gnaw at the back of their mind? You know, it depends on the person. And I think it's kind of the same with men and women, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, the player lifestyle is also damaging to men too. Not nearly as damaging as it is to women. It's probably 4, 5, 6 times more damaging, 10 times more damaging to women than it is to men. But we watch these podcasts like my good friends, the Fresh and Fit podcast. We make fun of these girls who are like, oh, he's got to be 6'5", work in finance, have blue eyes. That fucking TikTok meme. But yeah, they want these guys, these impossibly high value men, and they look like a fat cockroach themselves, and like they all want these like insanely high status guys. But I'm just as bad as those girls now, bro. Like I'm just as bad as they are now. Now that I'm 36, and now that I'm ready to like actually start maybe popping out a baby or two.
But Casey, here's the difference. The difference is like I'm also open to the idea of finding an awesome woman like that and being with her. And if I ever strayed and cheated, I'm not going to divorce her. And I'm going to take care of my kids no matter what. That's the difference. I'm not going to leave her, take the fucking kids, and then ask for alimony. That's the difference. What you said before is absolutely right. Men are not men cheat, women cheat. Men are not the ones ending these relationships, though. It's women. And
no, I'm not saying that. I'm making a different point. Just the fact that you fuck so many girls. Like my list of what I want to be my baby mama. Max age 23, absolutely no piercings and tattoos, small conservative social media, never been to Dubai. What else? Sweet, feminine, submissive personality.
There's no one, bro. I've got
a question though. I got a question though. If Michael, if your girl, you get married and your girl cheats on you, okay, are you divorcing her?
I'm probably going to take care of my kids and try to have a good relationship with her, but I probably would divorce her. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Would you say that you ended that relationship, or would you say that she ended the relationship?
God, in that case, you're absolutely right that I would be the one ending it. But I mean, the stats show that it's about 80% of women ending relationships. And then even when they're in lesbian relationships and there's no men involved, they're still the ones ending. They end relationships 3.5 times more likely than gay people do. So, I mean, it's what I'm saying is,
I think that's because gay people don't get in relationships, right? There's just like a huge sex culture.
When you compare marriage to marriage, so the same number of gay men and the same number of lesbian women getting married, women are 3.5 times more likely to end. And by the way, you want to know the reason why, Marcus? It's when one of the lesbian women have a baby, then the divorce rate skyrockets. Because she looks at the baby and she looks at her partner and she looks at the baby, and then all of a sudden evolution takes over and he goes, I need a high testosterone man to take care of this baby. Get the fuck out of here, Butch. Like that's what happens. So
I'd like to see the Tran. If you can send me that, I'd be really curious to read that.
Yeah.
Because I hear this stat like 80%, right? And maybe it's true. I just don't think like that study could tell us if it's true or not. Because like I look at most of my students, right, where relationships end, or like dynamics end. And maybe I'm biased here because I'm trying to coach the guy and fix his issues. But a lot of the time I'm like, bro, this is your fault, right? Like you fucked this up. And so when I hear like 80%, like if the guy is cheating and the girl ends it, or you're in a marriage and the girl's like, fuck, I need to end this so I can actually get some support here because he doesn't want to look after these kids. Like I think there's a lot of cases where guys don't want to look after the kids. Like, yeah, so I don't know. When I hear this stat of like 80%, I'm always like, I don't think there's
so many variables
there to help with that. Yeah, exactly.
There's so many variables, so much human interpretation of who ended the relationship. I think that's a hard one to pin down and look at as a hard stat.
Yeah, I think like you've got to share that responsibility, I think. Like I just don't see a narrative right now or a world right now. I don't have enough evidence for this where women are just like ending relationships because in their nature or because they want to, or because it's like for their benefit. I think like if you're in a marriage, like the amount of girls that are actually ending relationships and getting like a huge payout is like, what is it, like point something percent? Like it's just not the majority of people. It might happen for like famous NBA players or some shit. But yeah, so I'd just be like careful of that, because I think like for a lot of men, they just use that as a cop out where it's like, oh, it's just the girl's fault. I think it's important to take like responsibility as men or as like the individual man and like figure out what went wrong in your relationships and try to fix it for the future so you actually have like better, happier, healthier, more satisfying relationships.
No, I definitely agree that men are doing things that are wrong, but women in general There's a thing called parental investment hypothesis that came up from Robert Trivers in the 1970s, which basically stated that in any two gender species, the one that has the larger sex cell is going to be more selective, and the one that has the smaller sex cell is going to compete for access to the first one. Women are more picky, therefore they're just going to be more likely to leave a relationship in general. But yes, men also do things.
But then, I mean, with that same theory, right? So women are going to be much more selective. And with that theory, wouldn't men be more likely to stray with the evolutionary psychology theory? Like, wouldn't they be more likely just be wanting to fuck a bunch of other...
So men who have higher testosterone, I was just finishing, I'm reading the evolutionary psychology textbook right now. Men who have higher grip strength and higher levels of serum testosterone are more likely to have extra, it's called cheating in psychology, is called extra pairing
marital partners or something.
Yeah, it's an extra pairing, something like that.
So that's my point though. Like if men are like cheating, and that could, like, let's just assume, like, I know this isn't the case, but hypothetically, let's assume that like 90% of men are doing this and they're just cheating, and they've got the high T and they're just like fucking a bunch of other women. Then like if women turn around and say, hey, you just cheated on me and that relationship, like I wouldn't say like, oh fuck, look at all these women ending relationships. I'd say like, okay, this guy fucked up. So he made a promise to be loyal.
Totally
and
understand.
He ended that contract.
The vast majority of men don't cheat though, because the reason they can't cheat, they would cheat if they
dude,
could.
you stole. I was gonna interject and say that. Do you guys know what the reality is like for the average man? The average man is not us. The average man can't cheat.
Well, no, you're just wrong.
Marcus, I can't find your IG.
No, Marcus, it's completely wrong. If you look at the stats on this, the percentage of cheating is actually the difference there is actually normalizing. It's becoming very similar between men and women. They're very similar numbers because men can cheat. They can just pay an escort, right? It's like you guys are picturing some guy like going out to the club, being super charismatic, pulling some girl. Like men can. They just like
I'll give you an escort. Yeah, there's always escorts.
Right, and we're doing this. Like
each study has a bunch of different numbers. There's some up as high as like 45% and shit, but
I believe
I can't find your Instagram. I'm trying to send you
similar to that.
I believe the statistics that the majority of women may be the ones that actually end the relationship. But from my experience, this is just my experience, I've found that often women will fight for a relationship, kind of to the bitter end till they've exhausted all options. And then when they can't find a solution, they will end it with the guy. That's been just my observation. Women tend to be, when they commit to a guy, they kind of ride it out to the end. They try to work with him. This statistic kind of paints this picture of this innocent dude who's just hardworking and loves his family and like takes care of everything. And then the evil, conniving, like hypergamous woman goes out and cheats, or she's not satisfied because he's not making enough money, and she ends the relationship. That doesn't add up to my experience. I typically see women in relationships with guys. Something goes wrong in the relationship. The woman wants to go to therapy. The woman wants to make it work. She's doing her best to try to resolve whatever issue. And the guy will try as well. I'm not saying the guy does not try to salvage the relationship as well. But so just because the woman is more likely to end the relationship doesn't necessarily mean that she's to blame for it. She may have put in more work to try to make the relationship happen, to salvage it, but she still ended it.
Yeah, agree.
Marcus, I can't find you on IG anywhere.
Oh, sorry. I'll just shoot you a message, man.
Okay.
Just want to address a few things. I think I'm still coming out as delayed, so I really wanted to make some comments in there, but it would be in like after 5 seconds and someone's talking about something else. But lots of interesting things that were mentioned. So this was a long time ago, but Casey was saying Brazilian girls are very flaky. My observation being in Peru, maybe it's more, I probably wouldn't say it's a Latina thing in general, because I think my experience with Mexican women, they have been more reliable. But in Peru, I've been living in Peru 3 times now. And something that has been on my mind the last 1 or 2 weeks is Peru hasn't discovered time yet. So they don't really have the concept of time. People don't really wear watches. I don't wear a watch, but there was this one social circle setting, for example. We invited me and the other co-founder of Game Global, Joe. We went to some restaurants overlooking the Pacific Ocean in Miraflores, and we invited a bunch of women. Of course, just like any kind of invitational group of people, some people show up, some people don't. Of those women who did show up, and there was one guy who showed up too. So this happens to the men in Peru, Peruvian men. One woman showed up to the restaurant 2 hours late. No, I think it was two women who showed up 2 hours late. Two showed up, and one was a man 1 hour late. Even I showed up 40 minutes late, and I never show up fucking late to anything. Back in the day, I would show up at nightclubs the minute it would fucking open. Like I'm like a fucking German or Japanese person. The minute I'm on it, but the culture that it seems to be, I would say maybe not Latina culture, but South American culture, very much time does not fucking exist to these people. Like being in Peru is like being in the fucking 90s. They still haven't yeah, lots of stuff that hasn't even been set up in Peru yet. Yeah, more about yeah, some other interesting stuff there, but also I want to ask Marcus, tell us more about the sexual authority you were talking about, and you also mentioned getting girls over in lingerie. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, sure. Just quickly on the lesbian stuff. So what Michael sent me, yeah, it says here 72% same-sex divorces in the UK were filed by lesbian women compared to 28% filed by gay men. But the suggestion they have here is women are more likely to get into relationships, which is like the kind of stereotype of lesbian women, right? They go on 2 dates, they move in, they get married. So it might just be that they're moving a little bit too quick. I put a study here. This is a analysis of 50 studies, showed that the infidelity is 34% of men and
that's what I saw too
in women
yeah
as
that's
well.
what I saw as
So,
well. Well, so here's the thing. I just had Connor Beaton on, and then I just also had and I was listening to City Khan, and they both have clients. And one of the things that they talk about is that women are just better at cheating and consider fewer things to be cheating. They both think women cheat more than men. I don't. I still kind of agree with this, but I'm starting to see more and more people who are academicians who are starting to come around to this idea that even with anonymous surveys, women don't rationalize the fact that they gave some guy a blowjob when they were drunk as cheating. And so we're getting to the point where it's like women are catching up. Even David Buss says women are catching up. So, hey guys, I have to run. I have a client like right now. I got to jump to. So guys, make sure, take care. I love this. Let me know when this comes out, and I'll make a bunch of clips.
See you,
All right,
Michael.
cool. Catch
All
up.
right, guys, take care.
Yeah, just on the back of that, yeah, I don't believe this to be true. I think this is like a men's narrative that like women are just better at cheating, and so they do it more often, blah blah. Or that like men don't count it as cheating if it was just men do the same shit. Like it was an escort, it doesn't count, right? Like this happens.
Well,
I've got
can I
my best
interject on that?
friends. Yeah,
Can I
go for
interject
it,
on
man.
that?
Yeah, of course, please.
Yeah, it doesn't count if it's an escort. Men are right. We're right. You
What?
know
Why
why?
does it not
Because
count?
women don't fuck guys when they hate their personality. Men can fuck a girl when they hate her personality. There's no emotional involvement, right? One's like pure, it's like you're fucking a fleshlight with a pulse. You would the risk of you falling in love with a prostitute and wanting to leave your wife for that prostitute is literally zero probability. Would not happen.
Okay, can I ask you a question? What do you think would be worse for you specifically? If you were married, would you prefer your girlfriend to get fucked by a guy? Okay, she has sex, but it doesn't end up anywhere. She has sex with him once and then that's it doesn't go anywhere. Or would you prefer your girlfriend to have like an emotional affair where she's like messaging a guy from work, she like goes on dates, talks to him a lot, is kind of really into this guy, but never has anything physical? What would you prefer to find out?
I would be more devastated if she actually fucked a guy.
Okay, so even if it was like an escort and she didn't give a fuck, right? Like
Right,
no
but
emotional
that's
connection.
yeah, but I see where you're going with that analogy, but um in actuality, when we're talking about cheating though, so I get the strength of that analogy. I get where you're going with that, but let's, When women cheat, they like the personality, they like the charisma, the confidence. They really get along. He tells a joke. Oh, you're so funny. Oh, no, stop. You're so funny. She's into him. When women cheat, they are into the personality of the guy that they cheated with. When men cheat, very often they're not into her personality at all. And the risk of
let me pull up there's data on this. So you're right. Men cheat more often. With like it's opportunistic. So it's like the one girl they don't really into them that much. Women tend to cheat with people that they know, that they're into, and they tend to leave the marriage for the person they cheated on, where men tend to cheat and then like the marriage breaks up, they end up with someone else. So that is 100% true. Men tend to be more sensitive, as you pointed out, to the fact that like a girl engaging in something physical, and women tend to be more sensitive with guys cheating on like a personal level. So it's kind of reversed. But either way, like cheating is cheating. Like you had an agreement with this girl that like, hey, I'm not going to sleep with any other woman if that's the agreement you have, and then you go against that. If you have an agreement like, hey, I'm not going to have like emotional connection with someone without telling you, that's also cheating. I think like you could argue that one feels worse than the other, or one is worse than the other. At the end of the day, it's fucking cheating. And to say like it's not, I think is a bit of a cop out, unless you have like an open relationship, obviously. But yeah, I think like cheating is cheating, and we may feel different sensitivities, but I still think it's bad, right?
Well, the best thing to do if you want to fuck a lot of other girls, and even Dan Bilzerian is monogamous now, and all he's done like a new podcast run, I think, to promote some new. What's he working on? He's working on something, but
yeah. So we've got it's called Sigma Society. So I'm his coach for that. And so
you
if
are?
anyone's interested, little plug, go check it out.
There we go. Yeah, I set you up for that, bro. I didn't even.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
So
that was
perfect. Speaking of setup,
Yeah.
did the debate Marcus was on, the first debate I hosted, did that set up Marcus to be a coach in Sigma Society?
Maybe, but essentially, we had a mutual friend in the marketing space that was helping Dan out with his marketing, and he was looking for.
Look at that. I'm just gonna count to 5 seconds, see if Ice is gonna respond. One.
Less connection there.
There you go.
Can you repeat that again? I literally lost connection there on my computer.
He said it was all due to you, bro.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, let me hear it again. I fucking lost connection. Let me hear it the first
His connection's
time.
fine. The motherfucker just wants to hear it over and over again. All right, yeah, sorry, Casey, go on, man.
What we were talking about, cheating, infidelity. What was the thing? Dan
Dan being
I said he's
monogamous. Yeah.
Yeah, even Dan Bilzerian is monogamous now, and I don't know where I'm going to stand in the future, but at least where I stand now, which you guys, I have never, out of 4 girls that I proposed this to, the classic Andrew Tate or red pill, the one-sided open relationship where it's open for me but closed for her. I've never had a problem convincing a girl to do that. Now, I don't say it on the first night, I'm like, hey, great first date. Just so you know, if this continues to go well, I'm going to fuck other bitches and you're not going to do shit. I don't tell them that. I wait, a good 2-3 months around the time that they want to have like the talk is when I tell it to them. And I know there's a little bit of pushback. There's a little bit of feistiness, but I've had like a 1.5 year relationship where there's no fights over it, at least no fights that last longer than 5 minutes over it. And I would never want to lie to a girl ever again. There's just too much digital footprint now. Like, why did you get an Uber from this hotel at 12 a.m. and I accidentally saw on your phone this like there's too much digital footprint. I always get caught. And I don't know what you guys thoughts are on that, but I would condone that over lying, because one is like, you're telling her the truth, right? Like, hey, you knew what it was. I told you I was going to smash other bitches, and you chose to accept that, from me, and that's in the contract. Read the fine print. But once trust is broken, that's like a whole thing, because now it's like, what else are you lying about? What else, and does you lose trust on? So anyway, I would recommend that over just lying and cheating.
I'm kind of surprised that you said like 2 or 3 months. I call this the king and queen relationship. The idea, as you said, it's open on your side, closed on her side. As the king, you can do what you want. As the queen, she's loyal to you. So that's why I call it the king and queen relationship. I think my last girlfriend, for example, or actually two girlfriends ago, it was more like 2 weeks, and she told me within like 2 weeks, I know that you see other girls. But eventually I would want you all to myself. And she came to me with that. For me, I didn't really need to explain it in her case at first. I have needed to explain it to others, of course. But in her case, she was well aware of it because of how my social media was set up and the fact that I was posting stories, have things on my Facebook timeline and everything like that. It was always open to start with, to begin with. So there were no surprises in the first place. So that is how I observed my version of the king and queen relationship, the semi-open relationship to work for me without even necessarily needing to have that conversation in advance. It's the conversation would still happen. The setup was just more obvious.
Yeah, I think there's that. Yeah, I've got mixed views on this. Okay, um, one-sided open relationships, I'm not a big fan of. I think for most guys, you need a value gap there. Okay, or you just need a girl that doesn't give a fuck and is like bi or less jealous or something along those lines. But for most women, you're gonna have to have like a pretty big value gap. And even if you do have that, then this will be something the girls bring up whenever you have other areas that you're trying to compromise with. So for most guys, I think this is just like not going to work for them. For someone like Casey, of course, like if you got a bunch of pre-selection, you got a bunch of girls, you know, are a Western guy, or you have you know, success in your life, things like that, it's going to be a little bit easier for you. But yeah, I think for the advice for most guys out there, because I feel like you hear a lot of these Tates like giving advice around, like this is for guys that are killing it. These like top 1% advice. For 99% of guys, like don't even think about it. Like if you want an open relationship, just have it open on both sides and don't get jealous about it. If you want an exclusive relationship or you don't want your girls sleeping around, then just have an exclusive relationship. And yeah, mixed views is in we can talk about like the benefits of exclusivity. We could talk about like the benefits, obviously, of like having something open and the difficulties of it and things like that. But yeah, I think to keep it simple for like most guys, it's probably not something I'm going to try to be setting up. I'd either just go for completely open or exclusive.
I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the majority of women are not open to it. I don't care how good a guy's game is, the majority of women are not open to this type of a relationship. And when the woman is open to this type of relationship, it is more to do with her will than the guy's skill. I'm not saying it's not an advanced thing to be, you know, most guys cannot set up these one-sided open relationships, right? So there's some skill involved. And as Marcus said, there's usually maybe some kind of value differential, but most women are not open to this. And it doesn't matter how high value the guy is too. If the woman is not open to this type of lifestyle, she's not going to leave. Like, for example, Andrew Tate is not stealing any of my girlfriends. Any of my long-term girlfriends, they're not leaving me to join Andrew Tate's harem. It's just not happening, right? So this is not here to judge anyone's lifestyle. You know, if that's the way you want to live your life. I don't feel like getting into personal details of my experiences and my relationships. So I don't, but I'll say this, I don't judge that type of relationship. It's just the majority of women are not open to it. I don't care how good a guy's game is.
Definitely not.
Yeah, it's not for the majority of women and it's not for the majority of men.
Go ahead.
They might tolerate it for a bit. Exactly. You know,
I mean, I had this for a year and a half, and of course the relationship ended, but it had nothing to do with that. I actually ended the relationship because she just, well, I don't want to say any personal details, but again, there was a huge, well, okay, put it this way, talking about the value differential that Marcus was saying just before he dropped off is I've seen this on podcasts before. They go around the panel like, would you do the one-sided open relationship? Hell no, fuck no, I wouldn't do that. Okay, so you wouldn't do it. All of you say no. Okay, cool. What if your boyfriend was Drake? Then would you do it? Well, okay, if it was Drake, yeah, then I would go for it. And again, it's that value differential. Now you might be saying, well, cool, so they'll do it for Drake, but you're not Drake. You're not an A-list celebrity. Fine. What can happen after 2 or 3 months because of the personal connection and chemistry you have with a girl? You could have the same value to her in her mind as Drake. Like a lot, like you said, Top G ain't stealing your fiance. Of course he's not. right? Drake isn't stealing your fiance. On the night that you met, Drake could, well, let's remove your actual fiance from it, but like a previous girl that was choosing to leave the club with you absolutely would have ditched you for Chris Brown or Drake. But had she dated you for 6 months, absolutely she would not leave you. So what I'm saying is that all the girls are admitting is that if the guy has enough value, they would go for it. But I do agree. This is a very, very nuanced thing. I don't think anybody listening to the podcast should say, well, Casey Redbeard is right. I'm doing the one-sided red pill relationship. But I don't know.
Depends on the girl. Depends on the girl, right? This notion that your woman would always leave you for a high value dude, even on the initial engagement. It depends on the ideal that she has in her head. So most of the community is built around evolutionary and economic mate selection theory, but there are other mate selection theories out there. I talk about this in my book that's going to be released in January 2025. Little plug for myself, sorry. But I talk about different mate selection theories, and IMT, ideal mate theory, says that each woman has a unique picture in her mind of what her ideal partner looks like, right? So if you're in a little towny bar and the girl grew up kind of blue collar dad, she went to church, she dated the high school quarterback, who's going to have a better shot at getting that woman? The dude in the flannel shirt that's like drinking a Coors Light, or Drake who rolls in with his posse? There are a lot of women that will go to Drake. What if it's like a country
singer though?
What's that?
I didn't, yeah, like not every girl is into like, light-skinned black guys like Drake or whatever, Chris Brown or this and that guy. But I'm saying like for your girl who has her ideal mate selection is like, yeah, a country boy in a flannel, and you just walk up, what?
For sure. Or like a country celeb, right? Like you said.
Yeah.
No, listen, you have an advantage with status. You have an advantage with what we call, value, right? As the community defines value, which is typically status, money, resources, height, muscles, looks, right? There's an advantage that comes with that. But I think the issue is guys are hyper fixated on that. And I believe the majority of the guys that are in the community or that are looking to improve their dating lives, they're getting beaten over the head with this evolutionary science all the time, and it's discouraging them. I'm like, let's look at that as 5% of the game, and now let's get on with playing the fucking game. Okay, women like guys that are high status and are tall and have money and resources and are pre-selected. Great. Now let's put that aside and let's craft the style of game that is congruent with you and your personality. Let's get razor fucking sharp with that. And let's attract your type of chick, or your type of chicks, plural, if you want to be a little bit more adventurous, right? So I appreciate this conversation. And at the same time, it always goes there, man. Anytime I'm with, pickup artists, dating coaches, whatever, it always like spirals down to, what do women want? What do women want according to the science? I am very much about the art of the game. I don't want to study music theory all day. I want to make my own fucking music, So I think that the majority of guys in this field, they need to turn the volume down just a little bit on the red pill stuff, turn up the volume on the art of the game.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to talk about, so much how Drake or a country singer is going to take somebody's girl. I was just making my point that, it's a very nuanced point that's kind of irrelevant. We can move on from it, but I was just trying to say that if you have enough value, you don't have to be a celebrity. I do it. I'm not famous. I'm a little bit famous, but not to women, only to men. And yeah, like again, it wasn't about being high status or being a celebrity or anyone stealing anyone's girl.
I'll say this though. I don't think it's always a value thing, because I know a lot of chicks that are more like hippy dippy type girls that travel and go to festivals and whatever. And they're open to all sorts of unconventional type relationships.
Well, value could be chemistry, personal chemistry. It doesn't have to be muscle and a Bugatti.
Exactly. So that's my point though, right? Yeah. Like there are some women that are dating some guy and they're broke. They're living out of their van and they're traveling from festival to festival, and they're, doing drugs and, having group sex and whatnot, So look, once again, I'm not opposed to this lifestyle. I don't know how the discussion really started, how we got onto it, but I think we were talking about the types of women that are open to this, or I personally think it has more to do with the woman's will and less to do with the guy's skill to establish these types of relationships, because the majority of women are not open to it. The ones that are open to it are usually willing to tolerate it for a little bit, but they don't want it long term. And there are a select group of women that will tolerate this behavior, and I don't judge them, by the way. I'm not one of these guys like, oh my God, this woman tolerates her husband cheating and whatever. It's not for me to judge. It's not the life that I want to live. It's not the life that my fiance wants, or the majority of women that I've dated want. Anyway, I'll digress.
It's pretty much
it kind of goes back to the very
though.
first question we had, which is
it's pretty much a gimmicky thing in the sense like
well,
king and queen relationship and a man having threesomes. Well, a man only has one penis. He can't put his penis through two vaginas at the same time. It's just the gimmick of how amazing and unique the gimmick of the experience is. Like that other guys don't have the ability or the experience to have that kind of thing in the first place. To have threesomes every time you have sex, and to have a king and queen relationship for the rest of your life, those are extremes, and that's highly unrealistic. However, for the majority of guys, it's merely the fact that they want to experience that just one time at least. And anyone who's saying you can have this forever with like no mistakes, it's not quite realistic, but it's an exciting gimmick to talk about. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I would agree that it is a little bit gimmicky. And here's the other thing. Most of the people that are living these more alternative lifestyles are not talking about it. And no offense to you, Casey, because once again, I'm not here to judge. If you want to talk openly about your relationships and whatnot, so be it. But I've found that the majority of people that are living these adventurous alternative lifestyles, usually they're more under the radar about it. They don't talk about it publicly. It's kind of like a coach that publicizes his lay count, right? I will never tell anybody, what my count is. All right. I've been in the game for a long time. I coach with mystery, you just put your own guess out there. Okay. But I'm not going to get on camera and talk about how many women I've slept with. I don't think it's cool. I don't think a true ladies man does that,
I wear my lay count on my shirt. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. No, I agree with that.
It's like, just like saying how much money you have in the bank. It's like every time you get paid, like if you get paid every week or every month, I just got more money. Yay. Okay, congratulations. Now what?
And we all know
it's this pre-selection thing too, right? So many guys boasting about the women that want them, and showcasing it, right? I found that it's a lot more effective to convey to the woman in a very subtle way that you have experience. And they can usually flesh that out by the way that you talk to them, your qualification questions. They can gauge your experience level without you having to tell them about other women you've been with, without having to showcase all these women. So I'm generally a fan of very modest pre-selection. And equally powerful to pre-selection is the inverse of that. It's not necessarily that I want the woman to know that I have all this experience. It's that I want her to know that I'm not inexperienced, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, obviously I would never bring it up around women. I got to take off. I'll close out on just one or two things. Yeah, I was going to say earlier that we all know there's a particular psychopath in the industry that swears that your lay count is indicative of how noble your soul is. And lay count is the only thing that matters to a man. I won't say his name, of course. Definitely won't say his name. And what was the last thing I was going to say? I forgot now. But yeah, fuck bitches, get money. I guess that's what I was gonna say. No, I forgot. But I don't know. One other thing I'll say, yeah, closing out is I don't know. I may change my oh, I remember one thing I was gonna say now too. Uh you said it's more about the what was the how you phrase it? It's more about the woman's will than the man's skill. That's what
Mm-hmm.
you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
Totally agreed, right? I know a lot. I know a few guys who have had problems with it. So like, Casey, how do you do it? Like, my girl just will not go for it. Like, we tried it for like a week and she blew up. She kicked me out of the house. Da 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 da. I can't do it. And it's not because I'm so much more of a masculine, dominant alpha male and my friend is a little bitch or anything like that. It's because I just selected better for what I want. I only date really, really feminine, submissive Latina women. And some women are very feminine, but they won't go for it. It's not to say that, the more feminine she is, the more she'll tolerate you fucking other girls. Not necessarily. So yeah, it is more to do with my selection than my skill. It's a little bit of both, right? But and then just to clarify too, when I said value, I didn't mean, Bugatti and muscles per se. Your value can come from literally anything. Why she values you, which could be, yeah, because you're a hippie in a van who makes cool music, and she can talk to you for 15 hours and not get bored, and that's the value you have, not the money.
Exactly. Value is subjective. There's the science-based value, which we all know the data on that because the red pill community does not let us forget that every fucking waking moment, right? But then there's individualized value. There's what does she perceive as value, right? And that is not so easy to pin down with science. And that is the realm of game that has reaped the best results for me and my clients as well. I think guys should be focusing on the art of the game while supplementing it with a little bit of science instead of the other way around, where guys are just trying to mold themselves into the scientifically proven attractive alpha male that gets all the women. And no offense to the guys that want to do that. That's a thing too, right? If a guy really wants to go that right, he wants to be attractive to every woman and get as many women as he possibly can. Not for me to judge, not my style.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm acquaintances with Top G and his brother Tristan. I met them a few times. I think they're great guys. I'm big fans of them and everything they do. But I have hung out with, let's say, like little fan clubs, little meetups to do with the Tates, and it was pretty cringe. All the guys trying to beat their chest constantly, and they're just trying to be them, be the most bravado alpha. It's like, dude, just real like, do you need some Xanax, bro, or something? Like, okay, I get it. Like you know, put
see, and
down the
again, not for me to judge. I think uh who am I to judge? I'm a 41-year-old man. I do not know how somebody should live their life. Okay. Top G is, Andrew Tate doing his Andrew Tate thing. I'm sure he's a cool guy. And, when you get him one-on-one, I'm not the guy who's going to get on camera and yell into the microphone and be super aggressive and dominant. And this is how you should be as a man, right? I'm not here to define what it means to be a man. I'm here to help guys discover what it is to them to develop their game, right?
Yeah.
This is the differentiator between, what is masculinity and what is game, and Andrew Tate clearly has some game. He has a style of game that works for him, you know. It's
Yeah, I do. Sorry, I do have time. I just want to ask me one. You can continue, but I just want to ask me one last question. I'll go for it.
So Casey, you asked some pretty good questions I observed throughout this when you're interacting with women, especially in terms of like relationships. You gave the example, for example, being romantic, like normally, and then asking her if she wishes, how she would feel if you were dominant in the bedroom, or whatever way you phrased it. Do you have other examples of things guys can say, kind of similar to that, that kind of change the frame a little bit or set the frame in the way? Because in that example specifically, you're showing there can be that side to you, and she was excited by it. So, any perspectives on that?
Yeah, just to clarify the question, ways I can portray sexuality while balancing it out with being romantic, or what was the question? Was that it, or?
Not necessarily. I butchered the what I'm trying to ask as I usually do, but for example, how did you phrase it earlier? What was the way you said it?
Okay, so yeah, one line I delivered to a girl. This was like pretty much. I think I don't know if it was like as out of nowhere as I portrayed it as it was at first, but it was somewhat out of nowhere. I just said, "How would you like it if I always just treated you like a soft, delicate princess in the streets, but I treated you like my dirty sex slave slut in the bedroom?"
Hmm. Yeah, do you have other kind of examples like that? I'm not sure even what to kind of categorize it as, but in a way that's similar to we talked about the king and queen relationship, where it's kind of like setting expectations or some kind of frame. Do you have other kind of examples? Not necessarily to do with sex, but relationship wise, maybe.
Well, yeah. So, um, as the man, you're always the leader, and I like to date younger women, younger, very feminine women. It's with all women who respect their man, and respect is what keeps a woman loyal. Respect is attraction for a woman, and she's going to ultimately respect a man who displays strong personality traits, strength in all things, right? Strength in terms of his body, strength in terms of his points of views, his opinions, how he expresses himself, how he holds his ground, how he doesn't, get flustered or, give in to people and, sees the world through his own eyes, his own perspectives. And when I'm in relationships, the women tend to adopt a lot of my points of view. I'll tend to just rant about a lot of stuff. I'll give my opinion on what I think about feminism or whatever the current, the large global thing that happened in the year 2020. I'll give my thoughts on that, or I'll give my thoughts on the mainstream media. And because I make such compelling arguments, I just like to rant. I mean, I have a YouTube channel called Beard Rants for a reason. I find them, and again, it's also my selection. I don't date combative women. I don't date women who have this, A-type alpha personality in the first place. But I'm always leading, and in relationships, it's almost, it's gonna sound weird to say, but it's almost like a daddy daughter type thing. Like she looks up to me, I'm the protector, I'm the provider. She looks up to me as a source of wisdom and knowledge, and I think that's one of the best. I mean, that's how I like it. I'm not saying, some guys like it, this completely like 50-50 thing. I think that's bullshit. I think your woman should look up to you like with doggy dinner bowl eyes and just like, oh, like almost like she's like, beneath you, worshiping you. I think women like to worship men. I think they like to be naturally submissive to men. And that's how I always run the shit.
Interesting.
Did that answer your question, or did I just rant about something that was irrelevant?
No, that's pretty similar. What's the kind of thing that crossed my mind there? Oh yeah, so your example you gave earlier, what I was meaning to ask, I realize now a bit more accurately, like unlocking her desires or understanding the kind of desires or things she would be into by asking the right questions instead of guessing. So, for example, I think Marcus talked about this before on a panel many months ago, where guys just, for example, go into sex and they just do their thing. And Michael also mentioned someone he knows would say, get into your favorite position. So, extracting the information essentially on what she is into, that's kind of what I wanted to ask. I'm very bad at explaining things and and putting. I'm the worst fucking wordsmith imaginable. Erik is the opposite. He's a beautiful fucking puts things into great words.
Nah, you get it out, Ice. I like the way you word things, man. You get through it.
It's a hot
There's
mess.
a
Yeah.
realness to your communication style. I'm like a little bit too particular sometimes. It's like loosen up, Erik. Just fucking speak. So
Yeah. Again, so like other questions. So I guess I don't know if I can answer that, but when I say that, oh, or how would you like if I treated you like a princess in the streets or like a dirty sex slave in the bedroom? I'm assuming she's going to be into that because I think out of, I don't know, maybe I'm just taking a random guess, 350 to 450 women that I've had sex with, maybe 10 were not into a dominant guy. They didn't like to be dominated by a guy. So I don't know. The math on that is about 1%, I think, or a little bit less. So given 99% success rate with, women like to be, consensually graped, basically. I mean, just literally like abused and beat up. I mean, let's be honest. And that's just what they like. I don't know, bro. Maybe this is too risque for YouTube. Maybe you have to edit this out, but that's just what I
How do
found
you
that they
manage
like,
that
bro. They
risk,
just like
though?
to be smacked around like that. I don't see it as a risk, bro. There's been times when, okay, here's an example. I guess I do sometimes ask, like, here's an example. I'll be in bed and I'll be already spanking a girl with what I would say is like maybe a 6 out of 10 force, whatever, 5 or 6 out of 10 forces, however you define that, like a medium level spanking. And I'll say, and of course I know she likes being spanked, but I'll ask, do you like being spanked? They always say yes. And then I'll say 1 to 10, how hard do you like being spanked? I actually have had a few girls tell me afterwards. This is when I started asking this. Actually, there's been a few times when girls said I spanked them a little bit too hard. But that is kind of right. But I've had a girl say me like afterwards, like, "Hey, you spanked me just a little bit too hard." It was like actually kind of starting to hurt. I was like, "Oh shit, I didn't know." And in the moment, they're like too shy to say something. So that way might be another example. Is I'll say, yeah, like, and when they tell me 7, 8, I generally know what that means, and you can kind of just tell by the way they moan and how wet they're getting. I can estimate what a 7 level of spanking is pretty accurately, I guess.
So just
Hit
to
her
jump
with-
in real quick, like if I'm going to start going a little harder or more aggressive with a girl, I will typically foreshadow that, right? I'll just ask even. I'll say, can I go harder? I mean, sometimes it's blatantly obvious that she wants me to go harder, but if I'm not sure, I'll typically ask, can I go a little bit harder? And it's usually yes, right? Because I'm usually not going super hard to start with. I typically ease women into sex. I don't hit them with porno style sex like right out of the bat. I think it's much more important to kind of connect to her energetically and demonstrate that I recognize her comfort levels as opposed to just breaching her comfort levels too quickly. So I typically will ask for consent. Can I go harder? And then I will also say to her, let me know if I go too hard. And usually I don't go too hard because I can sense where their comfort threshold is. So if I'm really feeling like being more dominant and aggressive, which many men are, interested in being a little more dominant and aggressive, if I'm pushing that boundary, I feel for where that borderline is, and she always knows that she has an out. And I've typically demonstrated throughout the interaction from meeting her all the way to sex that I can sense where her comfort threshold is. So in other ways, right? Like not just sexually, but just even conversationally, even in the way I make eye contact with her, even in the way that I will subcommunicate sexual energy and whatnot that's flowing through me. I know how to turn this stuff on and off like a valve or fade it in and out, a fader dial, So that's my personal preference.
Yeah, I agree. Even like I said, I'll ask the girl, what level should I spank her at? And, I may, ask certain things. And I definitely do agree that the only thing that I will say, but I guess this is like a necessary evil, it's just not as sexy if you have to ask. I don't care what Me Too generation, pro feminism, pro whatever women's rights bullshit we're in. Anytime you're asking permission in bed, it's just going to be a little bit less sexy, but you got to do it right, because the alternative is you go too hard and then that's bad. So
if I don't have to ask, I won't ask. Like sometimes it's blatantly obvious, but
yep.
I will often
better to feel it out and not ask. Yeah.
There are a lot of women that will agree with what you're saying, that if you have to ask, it makes it less sexy, right? I have a few kiss closes as well for guys that are really anxious. Like, I don't know when to kiss the girl. I have some very low risk ways of going about the kiss where you do sort of ask for permission. You ask in a cool way, though. You don't go, can I please kiss you, right? But there are some consensual ways to escalate. And even women have said, oh, you don't want to ask, you know, that kills
Yeah.
the mood. And I'm like, I don't know. I have a pretty smooth way of asking. I think you'd be charmed. So
like, it's better to just like
Comes down to the
start spanking
communication.
her and say, how hard would you like to be spanked? Better than like, may I spank you? Anyway, sorry, Ice.
Yeah, huge delay on my side. Goddamn. It comes down to communication. So, for example, dentist, touching your mouth all the time for like 2 fucking hours, 2 hour session, drilling your teeth and everything. Let me know if it hurts. Like, give a hand signal. Like, whether it's going to the dentist or having sex, something like that. Some kind of communication. It doesn't have to be asking questions. Oh, you like that, or cheesy shit like that, or it doesn't have to be that way. You can be much more, just like Eric was saying. There are better ways to ask these kinds of things, but in general, there are better ways to communicate. So, like I don't see what guys are doing in the bedroom, but I imagine that a lot of, let's say, average or normal guys are saying things along the lines of, you like that? Is that too much? These kinds of super basic questions that would be like a turnoff, when there are much better ways to phrase those words. Yeah, I'm not a smooth talker.
Well, and it's
so
not just what you say too in the phrasing, not just what you're saying and the phrasing, sorry, the delay there, but your tonality, let me know if I go too hard, is not as cool as, getting into her ear, like sneaking over her shoulder and in her ear, let me know if I go too hard, and so it's tonality. It's not just what you're saying too. But even the kink community, right? Which I'm not in the kink community or BDSM community, but I know people that are, and communication is a huge thing in that community. There has to be really good communication between people that are participating in whatever the hell goes on in there that I'm not, it's not my thing. Okay. It's just not my thing. Or if it's the girl's thing, if she's really into it, fine. But it's not really my thing. But I know communication is very important in the kink community. So
Absolutely. All right, boys, I got to run. Yo, thanks so much for having me, Ice and Eric.
Nice to meet you, bro. Yeah,
Thanks.
nice to meet you.
And hopefully we'll do it again sometime. Peace out, boys.
Yeah,
See you, bro.
great having you here. Thanks. Alrighty. I'll keep
Ice, what's up
going.
with that delay, man? You can do some editing though, right? Are you going to chop out the delays? You can see the gaps in the sound bar,
Yeah, exactly. So this happened with video I was doing a few days ago. There was just like, it was normal at first for like the first 40 minutes or something, and then it just got wildly out of control. I literally dropped connection completely, and everyone else was Ross Jeffries and Michael Lee were still in the call talking. And then I rejoined because I had no fucking Wi-Fi for 10 minutes. It was fucking a pain in the ass. That video just came out today, but yeah, that was not ideal. So a lot of the conversation was lost, but people seem to like that video anyway. I'll try to fix this. I'm working with Peruvian Wi-Fi, but whatever. In the meantime, yeah, tell us a bit about, God, I can't even fucking speak. Tell us a bit about your experiences with mystery. So you set up with me the interview, which was more than 4 hours long. So that's fucking historic right there. Plus, even more historic, the debate between Ross Jeffries and Mystery. You helped set that up too. From your perspective, what are some of the greatest things you have learned from Mystery himself as his wingman and as his business partner?
Yeah, so man, there's so much to learn from Mystery. I mean, even just going way back to before I met him, right? I was intrigued by the idea that you don't have to feel confident to talk to women. That was one that blew me away because I have a little bit of a natural background. My story is not the typical story of the guy that didn't have any results, and he found the community and he read some books and watched some videos and he just transformed his life. And now he's a master seducer. I don't identify myself as a master. It's not my story. I actually did okay for myself in high school and even junior high, believe it or not. I put myself out there socially. But one of the biggest pieces of advice that was given back then, right, in the mid to late 90s, there was no YouTube, there were no ebooks, there was nothing, right? It was be confident. Everybody said be confident. So what happened was I ended up acting confident. Even if I wasn't feeling confident, I would act confident and pretend to be confident, and then sort of get this backwards feedback mechanism kicking into where I actually started to feel confident over time, right? But Mystery was one of the first people that came along and said, you don't have to be confident. He said, if you're going to jump out of an airplane and with a parachute, do you want to be confident or do you want to be competent? And then he said, you wouldn't want to get all fouled up and not pull that ripcord, right? So I think one of the most innovative things about Mystery is he's one of the first coaches that came along and said, fuck how you're feeling on the inside. Go through the motions, approach, get some material, learn some structure, start taking action, and the confidence will come in time, right? So that was my first huge takeaway from Mystery, was that notion right there, that even when I'm not feeling confident, I can go in and take some action. That's one of the big ones that first hit me. When meeting Mystery, gosh, there's so much. I've learned so much from him. So one thing I'll say that a lot of people probably don't know about Mystery is he's very capable of freestyling. Some people think, oh yeah, if you learn Mystery stuff, if you take training with Mystery, he's going to just turn you into this robot that just repeats lines. Let me be clear. Mystery does use material. If he's really interested in a woman, he's going to use tried and true material. If he's demoing for clients, he's using tried and true material. But he's capable of putting all of this material together in unconventional ways and mixing it all up. And he's capable of freestyling, you know? So this is something that was surprising when I met him. He showed me all sorts of little hidden details about the M3 model that I never knew until I met him as well. I had read his book, I don't know, 5 or 6 times before meeting him. I'd also read all of his other books. I'd seen all of his blog posts, every video he'd ever posted probably on the internet. I consumed all of that, right? His advice was just head and shoulders above the rest, right? Back in the mid 2000s. So when I met him, I came in kind of armed with like knowing his teachings, but he showed me little hidden details that I wasn't fully aware of. For example, to give you an actual example, A3 should last twice as long as A2. So in A2, we're demonstrating value. We're looking for IOIs from the woman. But in A3, we're qualifying her and we're getting her to DHV to us. And then we are rewarding with IOIs, right? This is me using M3 model language, right? So he said it should take twice as long for her to get IOIs from us. We want to be a little bit harder to get. So it sounds like a small little detail, but I always envisioned like opening and then A2 and A3 were kind of side by side. But the timeline for A3 is twice as long as A2. That's just a little example of many examples that ways that I learned things from him. I'm always trying to peel back the layers and understand what's really going on inside his head, right? Because we all can see his method. We can see the routines that he puts out there, the structure, the material and everything. But I've always been interested, like, what are the frames that he operates from? And not to plug our online workshop here, but on our last live online workshop, the last 2 of them, we did a section called Advanced Frames. And this was, the inner game of Mystery. He's an outer game kind of guy, right? He teaches the tactics, the strategies, and so forth. He was even opposed to this. He's like, I don't want to teach advanced frames. I'm not an inner game guy. And I was like, you use more frames than you realize. And I explained to him, the various micro level and macro level frames that he operates through. So a frame is a belief, accurate or not, that defines the underlying meaning of an interaction, right? Or our experience. So a macro level frame is like our paradigm, like our view of the world, right? Micro level frames are frames that we impose on somebody in the moment. For example, Mystery will act like the girl is hitting on him, right? So he'll be like, slow down over there. You'll get your turn, right? Or he'll act like she's being kind of socially belligerent, Oh my God, does she talk this much all the time? She's pooping words over here. I can smell it, right? He's setting a little micro level frame that she talks too much, but he's doing it for laughs, for fun, right? Then he has his macro level frames like guy chases girl, right? Or the abundance mentality, or there are no scarce resources and there's room at the top for everyone. These are his macro level frames and his micro level frames. So I had to sort of winch this stuff out of him through living with him in various countries, talking to him for hours on end on WhatsApp and whatnot. Mystery's truly one of my best friends. I admire him as a mentor. I love partnering up with him on projects. I've learned a ton from him, but I know him on a very human level as well. And, I had to winch out a lot of this inner game from him and sort of craft it and show it to him. And then he was kind of like, oh, okay, I guess we could teach it. It's gotten a lot of positive feedback. The guys that take our workshop really appreciate the advanced frames portion of the workshop because it's a window into Mystery's mind, which he doesn't, I think, fully understand himself.
Interesting. You mentioned about getting women to DHV to you or to qualify to you. Could you give some examples of how guys can do that?
Yeah, so that's the crux of A3, right? So once again, if we're doing the M3 model, mystery method, so we demonstrate value to the group through an indirect opener, an opinion opener, a story about ourselves, a rant, multiple threads, multiple openers stacked on top of one another. We get IOIs, indicators of interest from the woman, right? And then we will slowly reciprocate those IOIs. Sometimes it's very subtle, right? Sometimes it's just shooting her a look, looking at her up and down and then going back to what you're saying. What does she do in response to that? Does she touch you? Does she try to jump in the conversation? Does she try to tell a story? There's different ways that we can sort of evoke DHVs from her. And then there's the more explicit ones, right? Where you just qualify, where you finally turn like to her and you say, okay, now it's your turn. Who are you? Right. And then Mystery will neg sometimes. All right, you're losing me. And then he turns to the side. If she's not, even if she's DHVing just fine, right? He will intermittently reward and he'll intermittently punish. Once again, to speak in the M3 model lingo, I'm not saying that I like to view things through this punishing and rewarding lens, but so it's qualifying, right? Or if you DHV well enough, the woman may just jump in and try to tell stories too, So when she interjects, when she touches us, when she responds to qualification questions, these are her DHVs to us. Mystery breaks everything down into IOIs, IODs, DHVs, and DLVs. You're either demonstrating higher value, demonstrating lower value, and you're either giving someone an IOI or an IOD, right? And when she DHVs to us, that is an IOI. The very fact that she's trying to tell a story about herself or convey herself in a flattering way to us is an indicator of interest. They're one and the same. Mystery very much tries to gear his game towards positivity in the sense that what he wants to talk about. So, most guys approach the game from a frame of what do I have to say to get interest from the woman? They observe the situation. Okay, how should I go in? Mystery doesn't overanalyze a group before going in. He's much more centered in who he is and the material that he wants to run. So when he goes into a group, he's not, hey guys, can I get in here and tell a story, right? He's not feeling things out. He's going in assuming that what he's about to talk is purely the fact that he's interested in it himself, right? So he's fascinated by something on his mind, right? Something having to do with AI, something to have to do with, his Google Earth opener, right? He goes in with this sense of fascination, being fascinated with what he's talking about, and he's looking for women that hook into that fascination. And some women don't, right? Some of them are like, who is this guy, right? But the ones that do are going to be really into him. This is a big thing that I don't know if people understand about Mystery's game too, all right? Mystery does not get every set. He gets approach anxiety. He gets performance anxiety when we're dropped into a new city and we don't know anybody and we're going out and we're jet lagged and we don't know the venues to go to. He's human as well. And when he does his approaches, he's less concerned with how do I get every single woman I want. He's more concerned with running his style of game and letting the woman gravitate to that. So he may get blown out by 7 out of 10 sets. And usually it's not a bad blowout. It's not like, hey, fuck off, get out of here, right? Because he goes indirect. He wins over the group. He charms everybody. He does amazing sleight of hand. He does not do cheesy magic. He's not, pulling a fucking dove out of his jacket. He's like making a cigarette vanish. He's taking a ring and, making it disappear. He does cool sleight of hand. And so usually the group accepts him. But then when he gives IOIs towards his woman of interest, she's not necessarily always interested in him, right? He will lose 5 out of 10 sets, 6 out of 10 sets, 7 out of 10 sets. But the 2 or 3 that hook, they hook really hard. This is kind of tying into what I was talking about earlier, where the community is obsessed with what the science says women are attracted to. When you build your game according to the science of mate selection and what women are drawn to, you become like a spotlight that shines in all directions, right? When you appreciate the science and acknowledge the science, but when you focus on the art of the game and you craft the art according to what you like, the style of game that works for you, that you can run sustainably over a long period of time, you become like a laser beam. Not everybody can see that spotlight, but when you shine that laser beam on one person, it's a very intense beam of energy. And the women that are into you are really fucking into you. And when you craft your game that way as well, instead of constantly searching for how should I be, how should I act to get the girl, you are able to refine that skill. You're able to get really, really good at running your style of game. So it becomes even more powerful. This is about living a life of extreme congruence and getting great results, right? And here's one more funny thing. Let me throw one more twist on this story, okay? You would think that by making your game more laser-like, you're going to get less women total, but the ones that like you are really going to like you. I have found that when I make my game very laser-like, I actually have more options as well, because women want a guy that walks to his own beat. Women like guys that don't look for approval from the outside. Women are interested in men that can sort of break social norms and get away with it, or that are just congruent in their identity. So it's just across the board, it's a win for any guy that's still made it to the end of this podcast. If you could take away anything from what I'm saying, don't obsess over the science of mate selection. Learn it, let it color your game a bit, but focus on the art of the game. And for the guys that are really into the science and they just want to get as many women as they possibly can, fine. But how much coaching and advice do you really need on that? Do you really need a coach to tell you just make a bunch of money, dress really well, and act like a celebrity? You don't need anybody. That should be almost self-evident, So anyway, I'll digress with that.
There's a certain uniqueness that is kind of necessary for game. Just like you were saying this, and I think Casey was saying this too. There's an obsession, like Casey was saying, about how guys really want to be Andrew Tate. There's a lack of originality. Mystery is undeniably original. There are people who aspire to be other people. There are people who want to be just like Andrew Tate, Dan Bilzerian, or I don't know, some kind of celebrity, James Bond, let's say, fictional character, but they want to see an image and be just like that. And I can't blame anyone for that. However, the game with your own uniqueness is what should be the priority. Because just like you were saying, there are guys who are so obsessed with trying to become top 1%. Not everyone can become top 1%, but everyone has different things about them. So me personally, I'm extremely highly intelligent. So that's a unique thing about me. I like certain things. I mentioned before I get my Viking arm ring. I like the TV show Vikings. All of these things. I don't make my entire personality about Ragnar Lothbrok, but that's one tiny bit of inspiration I can bring in rather than obsessing over, hello everyone, I'm Ragnar, or shit like that. Or you want to shave your head, you want to wear shades and shout on camera and be Andrew Tate. You need your own originality. And that's the kind of thing that we can't necessarily give clear advice on because it's not blanket advice. We can't say to every person watching, you like this thing. We don't know what every specific person's uniqueness is. The hard part is that they have to find it, discover it themselves, and they can only do that by discovering themselves in whatever way that is. And there's no practical advice for that other than experience as many things as you want to experience. It's not practical advice, but that's the most practical it can get. And just like on the interview with Mystery, originally I was asking about how a lot of guys see Mystery's magic and they therefore think Mystery's gimmick is magic. Everyone's gimmick has to be magic. Or let's not call it a gimmick. It's a truly interesting tool to have. There are other tools, for lack of a better word, that can be very useful and complementary to your game, whatever that may be. But I can't predict it's magic for you, it's magic for everyone. I don't know what it is for you watching or for you who you're talking to me. That has to be discovered by oneself, I suppose.
Yeah. No, 100%, man. I think you're 100% on with that. I was told by my cousin when I was in junior high, my cousin was about 5 or 6 years older than me, and he did pretty well for himself, right? In the small little suburban town that he grew up in. And he always said to me, look at the other guys that have girls and take note of what they do. Take note of the way they walk, the way they talk. You want to incorporate their behaviors into your game, if you will. He maybe didn't use this exact terminology back then, but he said you don't want to be a cookie cutter version of them either. You have to have a little bit of uniqueness about you. So similar to what you're saying, man, I've gathered inspiration from Ragnar Lothbrok. I've gathered inspiration from Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I've gathered inspiration from Kurt Cobain. I've gathered inspiration from Jason Momoa, Brad Pitt. I've gathered some inspiration from Justin Bobby from the show The Hills, right? Popular show back in the day. I've gathered inspiration from friends of mine. Some of my friends in high school were super popular. you know, the jocks, the preps, and so forth. But I had friends of all different social stereotypes, and there were dudes that were in the more alternative circles as well that did well for themselves too. You know, I hate saying that what's the best style of game. Personally, I have found the best results when I'm somewhere in between mainstream and alternative. You look at me with one side of your brain and I'm a mainstream dude. You use the other side of your brain and I'm this more alternative, artistic type of guy, right? I'm kind of right smack dab in the middle by design, and I'm also just kind of naturally this way. I just find that I enjoy life better this way, and it seems to attract the women that are most compatible with me. I'm not going to say the best women. I'm not going to say the most women, although I've gotten, you know, I've had quite a few options in my day. We'll say that with this style of game. So every guy has to decide where he wants to be on the mainstream alternative spectrum. Some guys are super alternative, some are super mainstream. You have to learn the underlying concepts of game and insert your personality into it. I'm very much about customizing game for guys too. This is not, I'm going to tell you what I do, so therefore you should do it. I'm not going to say this is what all women want according to the science, therefore you should do it. It's who are you? What do you want? What kind of results do you want? Who do you want to be? Let's craft something within that template, right?
This is where I'm gonna try to be a better wordsmith. We got all these debates, and some people take them a little too seriously. They're like somewhat fun, but the one of the main reasons I do them is, you know, they're good for views, so there's a drama. That's not the main reason, but the main reason I would say it is because you get to explore multiple perspectives. Like normally when it's a very clear debate, like cold approach versus social circle game, you can do both at the same time, of course. You don't have to be either or. You can do both. The whole point of these debates is to explore these perspectives, however extreme or one-sided one or the other may be, but to extract the ideas and use that to your advantage. I feel that there are way too many guys. I just did a poll on this today and a poll on this last week. Last week was the day game one. How many days a week do you do day game, and how many nights a week do you do night game? Day game is the most popular one in the pickup community. The actual most popular form of game in society is message game, because online dating is used by so many people. It is bigger than the seduction community itself, but where the traditional forms of pickup, day game and night game are concerned, night game is a lot less popular. Less popular than I actually previously expected it to be. However, all these debates, all these perspectives, all these styles of game, the best game is your own game. The game that works for you. Because there are guys who could tell me all fucking day, and I run the groups, I run Game Global, I see everything that is said, all kinds of perspectives I have seen before. There are guys who are so obsessed with one form of game. It is the holy Bible of everything, is the answer to everything. Day game is the only way. Day game is superior, or this is superior, that is superior. The only thing the only game you should be really focused on is the game that works for you. Some guys like myself back in the day were busy working. I was working and studying, so I had to work around what worked for me. If you're too busy to do night game and you're too busy to do day game, game in the grocery store if you're going to the grocery store, game throughout whatever life that you have designed for yourself or whatever life that has fallen upon you. You don't have to go out to these specific places, Washington Square Park, or I don't know what place in Chicago would be the equivalent to that. Maybe that fucking weird mirror thing.
Millennium Park,
Is that the one?
the Bean.
The Bean. Oh, the Bean. Game at the Bean. God, how crazy does that sound? And you can see yourself in the mirror, so you can learn your posture corrections, although it's twisted because of the mirror shape. But anyway, the game is best when it is designed to fit you. We can talk about the best shirt to wear. Does the shirt fit you? Is it the color for you? My surname is White. I'm gonna wear white shirts, motherfucker. That's just how I do it. So I'm just gonna leave it at there. Thanks for coming along. And if you guys have any questions for future panels, drop them in the comments because I'm always taking notes of these amazing questions that are coming. Gonna aim to do a solo interview with Erik, who's here right now. So if you have questions specifically for Erik or more questions for Mystery too, then we can arrange that. Drop those in the comments. And one final one, actually that'll be too late to announce because it will be released the next day, but whatever. I suppose that's it. Any final comments from?
Can I throw so I just wanted to say, because I know that you've mentioned this before too, that there's some live online workshops coming up again with Mystery, and there's going to be some US boot camps as well. So look forward to that in the future. And Ice, everything you just said there at the end is just, it's spot on, man. You know, I think more guys in the community need to hear that, because just a few final thoughts here, right? The majority of coaches are sort of teaching what works best for them. And I'm all for that. I'm all for a guy speaking from their experience, right? But it's also important to recognize that what works for one man can work for another, but not necessarily. You know, not necessarily. You have to gather your creative chips from multiple sources. And like you said, Ice, craft game that is congruent with you and your lifestyle. I'm very much looking forward to a solo interview. Very much looking forward to working with Mystery more in the future. I want to get him on more of these panels as well. So I'll be meeting up with him soon because he's coming to the US. I'm his US agent / sponsor. I had one final thought for you on this. Oh, I just wanted to say, Ice, really appreciate you putting these together, man. These are really cool panels and everything, that you've gotten so many big names to join you and talk about really high level stuff. This is an art that I feel has gotten a little bit watered down over time. A lot of people ask me, how has the pickup community evolved, right? I don't know if it has evolved. I think in a lot of ways it's devolved. You know, this is where you're getting people that have been in the game for a long fucking time talking about really advanced ideas. And I hope the guys really appreciate what you've put together. I certainly do. Thank you very much for all of this.
Beautiful. Thanks for coming. Catch you on the other side.